right, family, so we're at the 9th hour prayer. Let us right now present ourselves as the living sacrifice, as a sweet smelling savor to the Most High. Without spot, without blemish, just a holy vessel. Clear your minds and your hearts as we approach the throne, we approach the altar. Ahaya, Ashur, Ahaya, Bahashem, Yeshaya, Babawak Kodash, Ahaya, Ashur, Ahaya, Bahashem, Yeshaya, Babawak Kodash, Ahaya, Ashur, Ahaya, Bahashem, Yeshaya, Babawak Kodash. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us for our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Shemai, Yasha'Allah, Ahaya, Alahayanawa, Ahaya, Achad. Shemai, Yasha'Allah, Ahaya, Alahayanawa, Ahaya, Achad. Shemai, Yasha'Allah, Ahaya, Alahayanawa, Ahaya, Achad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Amen. All right, family, just give us a couple of minutes to set up the camera. We're going to go on commercial real quick, and we'll be right back. For those who are online.
Shalom and Barakatham. Peace and blessings. We are the Gathering of Christ Church, New York City, a family who adheres to the sacred laws of the earth administered to Christ down to his father's children of Israel, whom are scattered abroad. We would like to invite you to join us in our law classes, which are held every Sabbath beginning at 1 p.m. during the winter season and 2 p.m. during the summer season, under the tutelage of Regional Elder Gabar and leadership. Since nations are built on families, our focus is to awaken our people, bring them back to their original heritage which was once forgotten, and to come back to the law, statutes, and commandments, together as one under Christ. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one.
Are you seeking to strengthen your biblical foundation? Join us in the Hebrew Bible Academy, where we offer 12 weeks of in-depth learning in a structured environment. Receive real-time news from Brother Shapat and amazing lessons by Elder Rawchaa. Learn ancient Hebrew with Elder Lawya. With 12 amazing lessons, you're guaranteed to learn more about your true biblical history and authentic Hebrew language than you would in a traditional Christian church, for only a one-time payment of $150 or 3 monthly payments of $50. Join us at historytimes.org and sign up today. It's not too late. See you in the Academy.
Shalom and Barakatham. Peace and blessings. We are the Gathering of Christ Church, New York City, a family who adheres to the sacred laws of the earth administered to Christ down to his father's children of Israel, whom are scattered abroad. We would like to invite you to join us in our law classes, which are held every Sabbath beginning at 1 p.m. during the winter season and 2 p.m. during the summer season under the tutelage of Regional Elder Gabar and leadership. Since nations are built on families, our focus is to awaken our people, bring them back to their original heritage which was once forgotten, and to come back to the law, statutes, and commandments, together as one under Christ. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one.
Are you seeking to strengthen your biblical foundation? Join us in the Hebrew Bible Academy, where we offer 12 weeks of in-depth learning in a structured environment. Receive real-time news from Brother Rawchaa and amazing lessons by Elder Rawchaa. Learn ancient Hebrew with Elder Lawya. With 12 amazing lessons, you are guaranteed to learn more about your true biblical history and authentic Hebrew language than you would in a traditional Christian church, for only a one-time payment of $150 or 3 monthly payments of $50. Join us at historytimes.org and sign up today. It's not too late. See you in the academy.
Shalom and Barakatham, peace and blessings. We are the Gathering of Christ Church, New York City, a family who adheres to the sacred laws of the earth administered to Christ down to his father's children of Israel, whom are scattered abroad. We would like to invite you to join us in our law classes, which are held every Sabbath beginning at 1 p.m. during the winter season and 2 p.m. during the summer season, under the tutelage of Regional Elder Gabar and leadership. Since nations are built on families, our focus is to awaken our people, bring them back to their original heritage which was once forgotten, and to come back to the law, statutes, and commandments, together as one under Christ. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one.
Are you seeking to strengthen your biblical foundation? Join us in the Hebrew Bible Academy, where we offer 12 weeks of in-depth learning in a structured environment. Receive real-time news from Brother Rawchaa and amazing lessons by Elder Rawchaa. Learn ancient Hebrew with Elder Lawya. With 12 amazing lessons, you are guaranteed to learn more about your true biblical history and authentic Hebrew language than you would in a traditional Christian church, for only a one-time payment of $150 or 3 monthly payments of $50. Join us at historytimes.org and sign up today. It's not too late. See you in the academy.
Shalom and Barakatham, peace and blessings. We are the Gathering of Christ Church, New York City, a family who adheres to the sacred laws of the earth administered to Christ down to his father's children of Israel, whom are scattered abroad. We would like to invite you to join us in our law classes, which are held every Sabbath beginning at 1 p.m. during the winter season and 2 p.m. during the summer season, under the tutelage of Regional Elder Gabar and leadership. Since nations are built on families, our focus is to awaken our people, bring them back to their original heritage which was once forgotten, and to come back to the law, statutes, and commandments, together as one under Christ. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one.
Are you seeking to strengthen your biblical foundation? Join us in the Hebrew Bible Academy, where we offer 12 weeks of in-depth learning in a structured environment. Receive real-time news from Brother Rawchaa and amazing lessons by Elder Rawchaa. Learn ancient Hebrew with Elder Lawya. With 12 amazing lessons, you are guaranteed to learn more about your true biblical history and authentic Hebrew language than you would in a traditional Christian church for only a one-time payment of $150 or 3 monthly payments of $50. Join us at historytimes.org and sign up today. It's not too late. See you in the academy.
Shalom and Barakatham, peace and blessings. We are the Gathering of Christ Church, New York City, a family who adheres to the sacred laws of the earth administered to Christ down to his father's children of Israel, whom are scattered abroad. We would like to invite you to join us in our law classes, which are held every Sabbath beginning at 1 p.m. during the winter season and 2 p.m. during the summer season, under the tutelage of Regional Elder Gabar and leadership. Since nations are built on families, our focus is to awaken our people, bring them back to their original heritage which was once forgotten, and to come back to the law, statutes, and commandments, together as one under Christ. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one.
Are you seeking to strengthen your biblical foundation? Join us in the Hebrew Bible Academy, where we offer 12 weeks of in-depth learning in a structured environment.
In the house, the other recording in the line, just unwind a little bit, and, I hear you, but going forward, we want to start a little earlier because I think next week is the beginning of fall, right? And the Feast of Ingathering or Booth is ushering in. That was last week? That was last week, so we're in the fall season.
Yes.
Okay. Right, and the memorial blowing the trumpet, right? See? The student have become the teacher. Okay. Very good. Okay. So we're going to do a quick lesson on, in today's title, the lesson is the trial of Paul. We're going to just focus on 3 or 4 chapters dealing with chapter 21 versus chapter 26. Okay. When he kind of met, he first got counseled by the local Sanhedrin. Then he went to, which is the high priest, and then we went to King Agrippa, I believe, and King Herod, and also the parties involved. And we're going to go into some historical figures that were mentioned in the Bible, so you guys get a context who these people are. All right, okay, all right, who these people are, and but you get a better understanding of what was going on in all the characters and figures that were mentioned, okay? And also to kind of give us a well-studied or an example of how to deal with conflict in regards to when you're dealing with manuscripts and meeting with governments and things of that nature. You got to deal with wisdom, but in the same time, don't compromise the gospel. We're dealing in trying times now. That sometimes there is a conscience thing that when you're, an Israelite, if you're at work, should you wear fringes, not wear fringes, if or you should, you confess who you are, and things of that nature. Would that compromise your salvation? Because, Christ said, if any man, denies me before man, I'm going to deny him before Father. So these are all conversations sometimes the church sometimes question, or member of the church question, when is to declare your religion, lack of a better word, and when time to hold back. So we're going to kind of use Paul's experience as an example. And today is going to be like an engagement of conversation of like, when is the proper way to be quiet? When is the time to speak? What would us being quiet, that represents that, we're denying Christ. We can't deny Christ. That's scripture, right? And scripture said even unto death, right? So we're going to have the discussion. So after this, it's going to be a quick lesson. I want to kind of get people's opinions or experiences, and also, or maybe questions in regards, okay, how should I conduct myself at work, my family, my friends, going to the supermarket, things of that nature. Because sometimes, I have been in situations, you may have brothers and sisters that they'll come into the Shabbat, and you see them with fringe down, Hebrew garment down, dresses, fringes, and you run into the streets one day, they got a Jesus piece on, they got a cross, it's like, brother, what's going on? Sister, what's a tight pants, sister, what's going on? You all right? You want to talk? They're like, oh, shalom, sir, brother. I was just, about to change or something, right? So we need to have these type of discussions, especially now when they're demonizing, all these, Israelites and, things of that nature. Anybody had a chance to see that documentary, The Murder of Joy Morgan? Okay. I'm more confused what happened to her now than it was before, because the entire documentary was about the court she was with and the people and how weird they are and the religion, and I don't know how the body's still missing. The guy got convicted 17 years, right? He's still denying that he killed her, right? So there's a possibility they could just simply he could be innocent, he could be guilty, we don't know, and things like clearly this, questionable behavior by the young man, but here and there. But clearly, I'm using that as an example that they will take any opportunity to demonize her, because they really didn't care about finding that body. They didn't care about solving this case. We're talking about a year conviction, which is very quickly for a murder case. Think about it. And a body that has not been found. That's unheard of. Back in the days, I don't know how to do it in England, but if you don't find a body, you can't convict. Mm-hmm. In certain cases, if you don't find the murder weapon, you can't convict. Now, but I'm not saying he's innocent. I'm not saying he's guilty. I don't know what happened, but it's just when you look at this situation, it looks like the powers that be looked at that opportunity and said, okay, let's capitalize to demonize this movement, right? So we're going to have a discussion on how to deal with these type of situations, right? All right. So we're going to start, right, at chapter 21 in the book of Acts, right? We're going to run down and Yatab Ya'ala, is he back there?
He's it.
Oh, yes. Oh, okay. He's Yatazakwa? Okay, all right. Shalom, Bishop. Can you ask, I want to ask, online, are we coming in clear? Is there any sound? Is everything fine? Okay, I get a thumbs up. Very good. Sometimes. All right. So we're going to start at verse 21, right? This is the return of Paul's first travel, right? When was the first time that Paul got sent, and what was the purpose? What happened that they needed to send Paul and Barnabas to the Gentile? What was the discussion? What was the first, I'm giving you a clue, the council that happened in Jerusalem about a particular matter dealing with the Gentiles and the circumcision? There you go, right? That was in Acts 15. So in Acts 20 is kind of the return of the report, after the return, right? Okay, so I'm going to start at verse 17. 21:17.
This is the book of Acts, chapter 21, verse 17. And when we were come to Jerusalem, the brethren received us gladly. And the day following, Paul went in with us unto James, and all the elders were present. And when we had saluted them, he declared particularly what things the Most High wrought among the Gentiles by his ministry. And when they heard it, they glorified the Lord, and said unto him, Thou seest, brother, how many thousands of Jews there are which believe, and they are zealous of the law. And they are informed of thee, that thou teachest all the Jews which were among the Gentiles to forsake Moses.
Okay, now, what does this scripture prove? Say again? Yeah, okay, what else? Yes, right? This, meaning part of Christ's ministry was not only believe, right? I'll read that again.
Acts chapter 21, verse 20. And when they heard, they glorified the Lord and said unto him, Thou seest, brother.
You see, brother?
How many thousands of Jews there are which believe.
They believe. Believe in what?
And they are zealous of the law.
Believe in what? In Christ, right? Believe the gospel, right? The good news. And
they are zealous of the law.
The law, read.
And they are informed of thee, that thou teachest all the Jews which were among the Gentiles to forsake Moses' law.
You see that? So the law they were talking about, it was the law that came down by the Most High through Moses, right? Read.
Saying that thou ought not to circumcise their children.
So the word "and" can also be translated as "but." And this, do this, but he did that. So put the word "but" instead of "and."
Verse 21, and they are informed of the Jews that thou teachest all the Jews.
Put the word "and" instead of "but" there. Matter of fact, start at verse 20, and then continue, and just so you guys can understand the proper context.
Acts chapter 21, verse 20. And when they heard it, they glorified the Lord and said unto him, Thou seest, brother, how many thousands of Jews there are which believe, and they are zealous of the law. But they are informed of thee, that thou teachest all the Jews which were among the Gentiles to forsake Moses.
So that the elders knew that Paul was converting Jews back to the Torah, converting Jews, or informing Jews of the Messiah, Christ being the Messiah, right? Because that was a new thing in Judaism, if you want to, use those modern terms. So they were, Christ was a conformer. He was conforming the Jews back to the original spirit of the law, and he was giving them the understanding that he's the Messiah, right? So when they were celebrating the report of the ministry of Paul, they would say, great, see how many Jews believe the law, man? They want to keep the laws of God and also believe in Christ, right? But, hey, Paul, listen, this is a report about you. Now, my theory is that in those journeys, he was writing he was writing epistles. And Paul's epistles are hard to be understood, and that's what kind of getting around by rumor, or maybe somebody heard his sermon and they misunderstood that when he said we're not under the law, which we're not, right? Thought, okay, that he was talking about
the law is done away with, right? We're not under the law, meaning we're not under what? The penalty of the law. We're not under the debt of the law. If we sin, a sin punishable by death, we don't have to pay that debt. We're not under that debt. But we still must repent, else more evil come upon us, as Christ says, right? All right, so let's keep reading.
Saying, in the middle of verse 21, saying that they ought not to circumcise their children, neither to walk after the customs. What is it, therefore? The multitude must needs to come together.
We must resolve this issue because they're going to hear you here, they're going to know you here, then that's going to cause a problem. Read.
For they will hear that thou art come. Verse 23. Do therefore this, that we say to thee, we have 4 men which have a vow on them. Take, and purify thyself with them, and be at charges with them, that they may shave their heads, and all may know that those things whereof they were informed concerning thee are nothing, but that thou thyself walkest orderly, and keepeth the law. As touching the Gentiles which believe, we have written and concluded that they observe no such thing.
This is talking about the natural Gentiles. You understand? Read. Now, you have to sometimes understand context in regard of the law. You have the law of the land, of the elders, that the understanding was we still have to respect that. So there was traditions within Judea that was established by the Sanhedrin. That was not established by the Most High, or it was not established by Christ, right? But Christ commanded the disciples, says that whatever the Pharisees bid you, do, but don't do it according to the examples, right? And we're going to show that we have to make a separation between the law of the land, which is the oracle law or the oral traditions, that when we were in Jerusalem, we had to follow those oral traditions in respect of the law of the land. That's why when Christ or Peter were saying that when you go to a city, give honor to who honor is credited and things of that nature, respect the law of the land and so forth, so on, and things of that nature. You cannot go to China and there's a law that you cannot, walk in this particular area to do this or wear that. You got to follow that law. You go to the Middle East, a woman cannot walk by herself. She has to either work for a husband, a father, a brother, a man. She has to also be escorted with by a man, right? So you have to obey those laws, right? So I want you to see something. Let's read.
Verse 25. As touching the Gentiles which believe, we have written and concluded that they observe no such thing, save only that they keep themselves from things offered to idols, and from blood, and from strangled, and from fornication. Then Paul took the men, and the next day purified himself with them, enter into the temple, to signify the accomplishment of days of purification.
So he was giving the Sanhedrin the respect. Right? And I don't know if I missed it, that he went to present a sacrifice or arm.
It didn't come up yet.
Did that come up yet?
I don't think so.
Okay, let's keep reading.
Verse 26. Then Paul took the men, and the next day purified himself with them, entered into the temple, to signify the accomplishment days of purification, until that offering should be offered for every one of them.
There you go. That's it. Keep reading. Read that again.
Then Paul took the men, and the next day purified himself with them, entered into the temple, to signify the accomplishment of the days of purification, until that an offering should be offered for every one of them.
Now, you'll say, well, Elder, isn't offering, temple, isn't that done away with? Yeah. Was he offering? Isn't God, took that away, the sacrifice and things of that nature? But it just shows here that the disciples were still giving the law or the land of the law of the land respect to keep peace. It would be possible to be at peace with old man. So the Sanhedrin, there was still, now I was trying to do some research in regards of, because this is dealing with purification, this, when you make a vow of a Nazareth and things of that nature, right? And I was trying to do some research what this meant in first century Judea. Because, the tradition usually changes because of the, by due time and things of that nature. So usually the arm was not necessarily during this time a sacrifice. It evolved into giving alms. That's why when they were giving offerings to the temple, right, and Christ was standing by the temple, a widow gave what? 2 pennies. So sacrifice have evolved to also include monetary means. You understand? Now, it was not only, a burnt sacrifice. So he probably gave a donation to the temple, to the priests, to make peace. But they could see, okay, he's keeping the law. But this particular law, not to say that the law of the Sanhedrin, or not Sanhedrin, because this goes back to the vow of a Nazarene, right? You keep a certain time, you purify yourself and things of that nature. You don't drink wine, there's certain things you do a particular time, and at the end of that, you shave your head, and what you do is you shave your whole beard, everything, and you take the hair and you burn it in the altar as a sacrifice, right? Paul did this to keep peace between the disciples that were following Christ in Jerusalem, right, and the other sect of Judaism. Okay, so if you can see that, let's read. Now, showing you that he was using wisdom. He didn't sold out. He didn't, and things of that nature, but he gave them what he needed, right? They needed, right? Let's read it.
Verse 27. And when the 7 days were almost ended, the Jews which were of Asia, when they saw him in the temple, stirred up all the people and laid hands on him, cried out, Men of Israel, help. This is the man that teacheth all men everywhere against the people and the law and this place, and further brought Greeks also into the temple, and have polluted this holy place.
Right. Read.
Verse 29. For they had seen before with him in the city of Troas.
So you see those little quotation marks in 29? You guys see that? Right? That means that the students or the scribes that were assigned to keep the book of Acts felt, you know what, we should add this to explain what was going on. So it's kind of helping the reader in giving a backdrop or context, okay? Let's read.
Well, they had seen before with him.
So by saying that, you have to be very careful in reading it, not to say that these things are off necessarily, but you have to understand this was not part of the original book of Acts. They're the epistles. You understand it? So when you see those things, I mean, they was added because the scribe kind of added it later. When they added things, it is a subject of debate and things of that nature. It could have been very early on. It could have been on much later. Like, for instance, the book of Mark, chapter 16, the last chapter, from 1 to 9, it was the original book. From 9 to, I believe, 20, was added way much later. We're talking about 300 years later. Way later. Because even when they look at the style of that portion of that Greek, although it's Koine Greek, it's more classical Greek. It's different. It's more modern during the time of that. And the earlier books of Mark don't have that. So when you go into that, so sometimes, but you notice they don't have the quotation there on Acts. Let me check that, dude, just in case. Can somebody check? Zeb, check real quick and see from Mark. Go to Mark 6, the last chapter, 16, and go on from, see if they have that quotation. Okay, so let's read.
Acts chapter 21, verse 29. For they had seen before with him in the city of Trophimus and Ephesian, whom they suppose Paul had brought into the temple.
So they added that to kind of give us a backdrop. Read.
Verse 30. And all the city was moved, And the people ran together, and they took Paul and drew him out of the temple, and forthwith the doors were shut. And as they were about to kill him, tidings came onto the chief captain of the band that all Jerusalem was in an uproar, who immediately took soldiers and centurions and ran down onto them.
Now, what it says ran down. Does anybody has the geographical location? Where was the temple and where was the Roman garrison? Anybody have seen? I should bring a picture. Okay, so when you go into the temple or to the land of Israel, right? Most archaeologists will say that the temple was here, and then the Roman temple or in garrison was in the peak of the mountain. So the reason why they did that is because to kind of show dominance. So if the temple would have been higher than the garrison and people looking afar off, and they'll see the temple, but they don't see then the Roman temple beneath the temple of Jerusalem, it will be considered a sign of disrespect to the Romans. So the Romans, they didn't mind you having a temple. The temple cannot be higher than the Roman temple or garrison. So they had like a base, and of course they had different, worship of their gods and all that. And they have, I think, a house over 200 soldiers and their servants and all that. So it was like, people say it was like about close to like about 500 people, because not only the soldiers were there, but the soldiers need cooks, they need servants, they need people to just kind of like meditate, cater to their needs or what have you, right? And I think some of them, especially like the type high-ranking soldiers, like things of that nature, commanders, they even had their families there. It was a big, big temple and things of that nature. So when they looked down, a bunch of Negroes beating up Paul, right? They ran down to say, what's going on here, right? So let's read.
Verse 32, who immediately took soldiers and centurions and ran down onto them. And when they saw the chief captain and the soldiers, they left beating of Paul.
They left beating him up, right? Read.
Then the chief captain came near and took him and commanded him to be bound with 2 chains.
Arrest him. So they probably figure the Romans, this guy did something. This guy probably got caught, having relations with another man's wife. He probably killed somebody. This guy's probably a thief. Get that guy, arrest him. And then he went to the crowd and said, hey, what's going on here, right? So let's read.
And demanded who he was.
Who is this guy? Read.
And what had he done?
What he did. Read.
And some cried one thing, some another.
Right? So read.
Among the multitude. And when he could not know the certainty.
I don't know what the heck is going on, because I'm talking about temple, and he brought this guy in the temple. He did what? He did polluted. What? And there's a Roman soldier. He probably doesn't know the tradition, doesn't care either one way or the other. They're like, I thought this dude was a murderer or something. Listen, all right, hold on, right? Keep reading.
And when he could not know the certainty of the tumult, he commanded him to be carried into the castle.
So he went to what? The castle. So the castle was much higher than the temple. You guys understand that? Okay, read.
And when he came upon the stairs, so it was.
See, up the stairs, right? Upon the stairs, read.
That he was born of the soldiers for the violence of the people. For the multitude of the people followed after, crying, away with him. And as Paul...
So look at the scenario. So in modern times, it will be like Deacon Shamar is street preaching, right? And the brothers are beating him up. The cops come through, and trying to investigate what's going on and things of that nature, right? Read. And then while Deacon Shamar is getting led away by the police, everybody like, arrest this dude. This is, and the cops have to actually, protect Paul from the mob, right? Read.
Verse 37. And as Paul was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, may I speak unto thee? Who said, canst thou speak Greek?
So Paul said, hey, can I have a conversation with you? Because he was speaking in Greek, right? And he was like, you speak Greek? Read.
Art not thou that Egyptian?
Are you that Egyptian? Right? Read.
which before these days made us in uproar?
So what he assumed was that the Jews were beating up that rebel Egyptian that was causing some trouble. See that? But the only way for that to even be possible, Paul must look like what? An Egyptian. Mm-hmm. The Egyptians were black. So he probably tried to figure out, oh, this guy, yeah, I heard about this rebel guy, Egyptian running around. And I was trying to find a historical connection to who he was talking about, but I couldn't find anything, right? But clearly he was trying to put things together. So therefore he was surprised that he was not speaking the Egyptian language. He was probably, he spoke Greek. He was like, wait a minute, you that Egyptian, right? Read.
Verse 38. Art not thou that Egyptian, which before these days made us an uproar and lead us out into the wilderness for 4,000 men that were murderers? But Paul said, I am a man which am a Jew of Tarsus.
No, I'm not that Egyptian dude. I'm an Israelite. Right? Read.
A city in Sicily, a citizen of no mean city. And I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people. And when he had given him license, Paul stood on the stairs and beckoned with the hand unto the people.
Yeah, so I was having a conversation with Dr. Bob Till. We had him on the show like 3-4 years ago about the early church. Remember that right after like that, what's his name, James White, right? And we brought him into the radio show to kind of show the people that the early writings of the early church and things of that nature, not all of them were following the Sunday worship. You had a lot of people that were following, the Sabbath and things of that nature, right? So him and I were having this conversation. We were having a conversation about a month ago, a month and a half. And, he believes that the children of Israel were, he's a branch off, because I was doing kind of a background on, or I was having a conversation with him. He's a branch off of the British Hebrew thing, that the descendants of the people that came from London, of the tribe of Ephraim and all that. Have you ever heard of that? Hebrew Israel? Okay. So he comes from that thing. So he basically believed that the people that came from England and Scotland and those areas were of the northern tribe, and the Jews that are in Israel are the southern tribe, right? So he believes that the Europeans are, although not all Europeans, because he doesn't believe he's an Israelite, but he believes that the Israelites are like in Scotland and in those areas, right? So I sent him some information. We were going back and forth. So the number one thing, and the reason why I'm going there is because every single time we bring up, where we usually go that to prove that the Jews have color. Moses was mistaken for an Egyptian, right? Acts, not only Acts, absolutely. And then I went here. I said, well, now the argument that they used, which I knew it a while back because I saw an article about good 7 years ago about questioning the authenticity of the Egyptians, because they have found some mummified and some tombs, and they opened it up and they took DNA of the pharaoh, the guy that was laid there, and he had European DNA, right? So the first argument he was saying, well, the reason why Moses got mistaken for an Egyptian because he was having Egyptian clothing. You ever heard that argument? Right? He came from direction, so it's like, well, and I was like, well, let's analyze that for a minute. Okay, first of all, Moses, if he ran away and they was chasing him, do you think Moses was running around with a big Egyptian hat in the desert, an Egyptian staff, with a little and things of that nature? And now, I showed them some articles that most the average Egyptian are not dressing like the pharaohs and what you see in the war. because that's royalty. You're not going to see an average Egyptian dressing with the headdress and all that. Imagine Moses with the headdress, in the desert running. That's not going to happen, right? A. And B, when you look at the layman Egyptians, they're dressed, when you look at the people from that area, the Middle East, they're pretty dressed the same. It's usually with, in the desert, it's usually with some form of like long sheet and, you can't distinguish an Egyptian or if someone comes from Midian or someone comes from that area, they're all going to dress the same. Moses, he was running for his life. He's not like, let me just go wear that nice headdress, And then when I say, well, what about Paul? Well, Paul was running around with Egyptian headdress. He got mistaken for the Egyptian. He couldn't answer that. He said, then that's when he couldn't come back with that. That's when there's some new data about the physical appearance of Egyptians, because they just I'm familiar with that data, right? They have found some tombs with European DNA. I say, I don't deny that. But you got to go to the Ptolemy era. And let's analyze one thing. Okay, let's just say the Egyptians were white. Why they paint themselves black? All through. Why would they, and what about the other mummified bodies that they have found that didn't have European DNA? And even the scholars that agreed that that they found European DNA within the pharaohs are not saying that the Egyptians were Europeans. What they're saying is that we have to rethink history in regards of the European contribution to Egyptian culture. Right? And I told them, well, this is the contribution. I know I'm digressing here, but it's all, connected to this and things of that nature, just in case if you go into the Moses being mistaken as an Egyptian, and then you go into Paul, they might throw this at you, right? So if you, and I showed them some articles like, well, what about all the other DNA that showed pharaohs not having European, which is the majority of the pharaohs? So how are you going to exclude all the paintings, all the other DNA that you don't find European DNA, but say, oh, look, one guy, I think it was like one or two people and things of that nature. And I said, well, let me go into the history of that. The Ptolemy, they digged up the mummified bodies and put their family in those tombs. Because, and I went into the Apocrypha and showed you that was something that the Greeks used to do, put their image and all that. And went into the King Herod, how he was an Edomite and all that. And then all of a sudden, he had a phone call, he had to go.
And and Cleopatra is related to Herod.
Yeah, Cleopatra was half Egyptian, half Edomite.
Herodian, yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So that's what they do. They infiltrate and put themselves, not only did they took over, but they tried to put themselves like they were always there. Now, the funny thing is, because I was showing like, okay, why would the actual tomb that they found this European man, the tomb has a painting or a carved image of the actual pharaoh. That actual image, that guy is black as night. Why would this white guy say, I want, you to draw me like a black guy, but then that makes no sense. But afterwards, like, that's interesting. Well, I gotta go now. Right? So just in case, they're gonna because they're gonna try to throw that whole thing with they can't deny that Israelites used to always be mistaken by dark people. Now they're gonna try to define, well, maybe the dark people were not dark. They were, Okay. And also, when you're dealing with, I had a thought, it slipped me, but it'll come back to me. Okay, let's keep reading.
So in Acts chapter 21, verse 40, and when he had given...
Oh, that's right, yeah. So when you're dealing with color in the Bible, don't get caught up with Jeremiah 14. Right, is it 14:1? 14:2. Judah mourns in the gate of language, they are blackened to the ground. That's not a good color scripture. That's not talking about their color. That's talking about their mourning, right? Job, my skin is black upon me. Don't go there. A lot of these other Israelite camps, they will go there. That's not talking about skin color and things of that nature. Now, when you go in, I will go, dealing with, Moses got mistaken for the Egyptian and Paul and things of that nature. Solomon, wisdom of Solomon. Now, there's an argument. Son of Solomon. There's an argument that was not Solomon speaking, that was his wife. Okay, so there's an argument there and things of that nature. So either or, although his wife, and there's an argument that was Queen Sheba. Ever heard that argument? And things of that nature. So no one really knows because it is a back and forth. It's like a love poem between a man and woman when you read it and things of that nature. Me personally, the reason why I believe that is Solomon speaking is because when you keep reading, it says that that the Lord made me the vineyard of the people and things of that nature. Let's go there real quick. I know we transgression. We're not transgression. What's that word? I'm tired. Diverting from the lesson, right? But I just want to show you something. Just in case you come across these things or these arguments, or you bring out these arguments, because the Christian community now, the apologists and all that, they're getting much smarter. They're getting prepared to deal with all these things. And that's a good thing, because now a lot of the stuff that even the Israelite community used to come up in the 90s and the 80s about, Judah mourned to get to a land they are black to the ground. I used to do that. I should say that. Brother, the Jews were black. Give me that, Jeremiah. Right? And then back in the days. And you still see a lot of camps still going to that. They're wrong on that. That's not a good, scripture that will go that. So right now, the apologists are getting, they're studying. Because back in the 90s and the 80s and things of that nature, maybe the early 2000s, and even now, but now you have like that pastor they walked up, Israel that we interviewed, that I was, itching to go here. Because most Christians teach that the law is for the Jew. We're the Gentile, and Paul came to us, and there's a different sets of rules for us and things of that nature. But what am I? If you're the Jew, right, and you know that, how is it, and you said you're dealing with a Pauline, so the Pauline would not address you if you believe that it's for the Gentile. Because even when Paul came back, the disciples like, you believe? I mean, do you see, my brother, how many Jews believe in the desires of the law? Would that apply to you now? Right? But that's a different conversation. All right, so let's keep reading. Let's go to 1 and 5.
This is Songs of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 5. I am black, but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar.
Now you notice is the word "but," and telling you the devil he's a liar. The word "but" is not even in the Hebrew. Anybody look at it? Anybody has a Strong's? Look it up. It's not. It was added. Now some Bible, like my Bible, some Bible has the word "atalis." You're supposed to have the word bend over a little bit, slide it over to show the audience that this was added by the scribe. This was not part of the original. But you know that some Bibles do, some Bibles do. Who has a talis in their Bible? The word "but." You sure you have your? Double check. Because they barely do. They used to have it. They don't have it anymore. Anybody has in their Bible the word "but"? I am black, but beautiful. Anybody has an talis, or they all? Zach. Right. It's straight out. Can some, you have the Zakwa, you have the Strong's with you?
Hello. Carnel, I have it.
All right, does the word but is in Hebrew? Because I checked.
It's
Is the word there, is the word but is a...
no. It's
No,
not
right?
Hebrew. No, it's not.
Right. So not every word that is not italics does not mean is a Hebrew word. You have to check into the actual scrolls. Right? I think I have an old Bible that has that word italics. I think I kept it in my house and know that. But most modern Bibles don't do that, right? And the reason why they do that is because if you read this, it's like it's giving you the impression that I'm black and beautiful. It says I am black but comely, meaning although I'm black, I'm still beautiful. Giving the impression that being black is not being beautiful. You understand? Yes, sister. Yeah. Right. But it's giving the perception that although I am black because I took out the sun, but I'm still beautiful. It's demonizing the color black. You understand? Yeah. Online, yes. Okay.
But I was going to say, Elder, in the Hebrew itself, you have to read the Hebrew text, right?
Yep.
It says, Shakwara Anai means I am beautiful. Wa Nawa. So it says and, the word ah,
right.
The wa.
Right.
So the wa is the and, is not a but. So that's where you got to go and actually in the Hebrew itself to show that it's actually saying and.
Right. I'm black and beautiful. That's where you get black and lovely term from. You understand? Exactly. But they put the word but because but is like it's like this, it's distinguishing, but it's giving like a negative, condescending, right? But it gets worse. Keep reading.
I am black but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem. As the tents of Kedar. As the curtains of Solomon.
So this shows that it couldn't be Solomon because he could not be speaking to himself as a third person. Right? Read. It was one of his wives. Read.
Look not upon me because I am black.
Now the word, look not. Look up the Hebrew word for not there. Look up the word not in Hebrew. There's the word not. Look not upon me. So when you read it in the English version, it's giving you like, I am black, but I'm still beautiful. Don't look upon me because the sun is giving me a real dark suntan, demonizing darkness, right? But look at the word not there.
Yeah, the word not is not even there in Hebrew.
Say again?
The word not is not even in Hebrew.
It's not even in Hebrew. When you read this sister is embracing her skin and showing that she is beautiful because she got the suntan.
Yeah, it says, look upon me. That's what it says.
Look upon me because the sun has gazed upon me. She was bragging how beautiful she is and how beautiful her skin is. But when you read it in the English version, it's giving you like, I'm still beautiful, although I'm black. Don't look upon because, I got the suntan, but I'm still beautiful. I'm still all right, right? That's what, so you have to be very careful with that, right? All right. Okay, so let's keep reading. Let's go back. So, just in case, because these are scripture, but this is when Paul got mistaken for an Egyptian, this is a solid scripture to go to prove color in the Bible, right? Not Jeremiah 14:2, not Job 30:30. Stay away from those because those are not actual color scripture. Although someone to the unlearned, okay, it might seem that way. But we're not going to deceive people just because, if they unlearned, because then when they become learned 3 years later, like, Gabar, come in, you told me. All right, and then it's going to look, it's going to compromise, our integrity, right? So let's go back to Paul.
Acts chapter 21, verse 40. And when he had given him license, Paul stood on the stairs and beckoned with the hand onto the people.
So he didn't know he was a Hebrew. He thought he was an Egyptian foreigner, and he was a murderer, and that's the reason why the Jews wanted to kill this murderer. You understand that? But then once he began to speak in Greek and say, no, I'm not that Egyptian murderer, I'm a Hebrew, could I talk to the people? And he gave them license. He gave them, okay, go talk to the people. Read.
And when there was made a great light on silence, he spake unto them in the Hebrew tongue, saying.
Now he began to speak in Hebrew because he had the talent of different languages. Now, we don't know that he got those languages by the Holy Spirit, meaning simultaneously like the day of Pentecost, or he grew up learning Hebrew and learning Greek because he was under the school Gamaliel, I believe his name is, right? And it's going to show you that. And when you go into the history, for you to be under that student, you have to learn Hebrew. But the common language in the diaspora was Greek. So it could have been that he just knew Hebrew because he was a student of Gamaliel. We're going to go into who he is and things of that nature. And then he was a student of Hillel, right? And then there was two school of thought in that time, Hillel and Shamiel. I got to write it down here. How you pronounce this? Shemet El or Shemet?
Shemeti.
Shemati? Yeah, I think that's his name. Probably pronounce it wrong. Okay, all right. So we're going to go into that, right? Because that's important to understand that. So let's read.
Men and brethren and fathers, hear ye my defense, which I make now unto you. And when they heard that he spake in Hebrew tongue to them, they kept more silence.
So they gave him respect because any Jew will know if you know Hebrew, that means you learn Hebrew. You understand the culture. If he was speaking in Greek or another language, this dude doesn't know what he's talking about. Because Hebrew was a learned language that only the Jews that could afford a teacher and come from a previous family to learn. So that's when they gave him respect, right? So you guys see now why the Most High chose Paul, because he was able to maneuver in both worlds, the Greek world and the Roman and the Hebrew world. Read.
And he saith, I am verily a man which I am a Jew, born of Tarsus, a city of Cilicia, yet brought up in this city at the feet of Gamaliel.
Gamaliel, that's the teacher, Gamaliel. He's a student of Hillel. Hillel, at that time, was about, people estimate between 55 to 60 years old. So at that time, he was more like a figurehead, and it was his students kind of like more part of the Sanhedrin and part of that sect of leadership. But he was still alive, right? And Shemet, whatever the other guy's name, there was a different sect, and they like the new kids in the block, but they were more, when you read all the, matter of fact, we're going to go into that real quick. When you read all the commentary, Shemati is the stricter version of Judaism. They were like real strict, more strict than the Hillel school. Like, for instance, the Hillel school, they were more liberal with divorce. So when Christ was speaking to the Jews about divorce and all that, and they were saying, So it's not good to marry and things of that nature because they really had a real liberal perspective on divorce. Shamati had a more strict. There's no divorce, there's no divorce, there's no divorce. He had like very, I think only adultery, more dealing with the line of what Christ was teaching. So sometimes when Christ was teaching, there were Jews from both sects of school. And Christ, it wasn't that he was using their doctrine and he was picking from their doctrine, because some of both schools had truth in it, but they didn't have the full truth. So when Christ broke it down, he got directly from the Father. He didn't study from Elul or Shemiel, he didn't study from them. He got directly from the Father. So that verified that, okay, what Elul said here was right. When he said here, it was wrong. Because, in things of that nature. Like, for instance, it was Hillel thought that when they asked him, what is the 2 greatest commandment? That came from that school of thought. Love the Most High with all your heart and mind and soul, and love your neighbors yourself. Hillel used to say that. So he was right on that. But the Hillel school of thought of marriage, they were wrong. You know what I'm saying? So you can't really hang on anything when you read these ancient commentaries of the Jews and all that. You can't hang on, they're like, oh, that's the right one. You understand? Because it's what Christ said, it's the final word. Okay, but some of them were right in certain things and others they were wrong. Okay? All right, so let's read.
Verse 3. I'm verily a man which am a Jew, born of Tarsus, a city of Sicilia.
Come on.
Yet brought up in this city at the feet of Gamaliel.
And the feet of Gamaliel, meaning that was a statement. If you learning, you're always like, when you're just students sitting by your feet, and I'm sitting and you like by my feet, right? So let's read.
And taught according to the perfect manner of the law of the fathers, and was zealous towards the Most High. And ye all are this day.
And you are this day. So this was a group of Jews that were part of that school of Hillel, as you are this day. You guys understand that? Now, both schools agreed in 90% of their doctrine. I think they disagreed very little. I think it's like in 2 chapters of the Bible they disagree. Like 2-3 subjects. It's like very, so it wasn't like it was that much difference between the 2 schools of thought. Okay? But let's keep reading.
Verse 4. And I persecuted this way unto death, binding and delivering into prisons both men and women, as also the high priest doth bear me witness, and all the estate of the elders, from whom also I received letters unto the brethren, and went to Damascus to bring them which were there bound unto Jerusalem, for to be punished. And it came to pass.
So real quick, I wanted to go into a quick commentary on Gamaliel, who he is, because it's the guy that Paul referenced, right? Okay. And Gamaliel is the same guy in Acts 5 that when the disciples were preaching the name of Christ, he was the priest that said, listen, leave these men alone, because if they are not the Most High, nothing's going to happen. That was Gamaliel. Matter of fact, hold that. Go to Acts 5. Acts 5. I wrote it down. Oh, matter of fact, I highlighted over here. Acts 5. I'm blind. Can't see anymore. I have Acts 5:38. That's it. To kind of give you a historical context. So he referenced a guy that was well respected, right? He was speaking Hebrew. So he said, okay, this guy's learned. He's not an idiot, right? And he was referencing people that people respected. So let's go to Acts 5 and 38.
This is Acts chapter 5, verse 38. And now I say unto you, refrain from these men.
Jump down or jump up, because it shows you who's speaking. 34. There you go. Thank you, sirs and Mrs. Let's read.
Then stood there up one in the council, a Pharisee named Gamaliel, a doctor of the law, had in reputation among all the people, and commanded to put the apostles forth a little space.
So he said, let me hear this case. So he was well respected within that community, right? Read.
And said unto them, ye men of Israel, take heed to yourself what ye intend to do as touching these men. For before these days rose up Thaddeus, boasting himself to be somebody, to whom a number of men, about 400, joined themselves, who were slain, and all as many as obeyed him were scattered and brought to naught. And after this man rose up Judas of Galilee in the days of the taxing, and drew away much people after him. He also perished, and all, even as many as obeyed him, were dispersed. And now I say unto you, refrain from these men, and let them alone. For if this counsel is the work be of men, it will come to naught. But if it be of the power, yet ye cannot overthrow it, lest haply ye found even to fight against the Most High.
So he was the one that actually said, leave these men alone. Now, let's go into the legend on him or the commentary. So we could start here. We could start here. Matter of fact, just, touch on real quick on who he is and jump down here and then jump down to the Christian tradition. Okay.
This is from Wikipedia, Gamaliel the Elder, also spelled Gamaliel or Rabban Gamaliel the First, was a leading authority in the Sanhedrin in the early 1st century AD. He was the son of Simeon ben Hillel and grandson of the great Jewish teacher Hillel the Elder. Gamaliel Gamaliel is taught to have died in 52 AD. His father, Simeon ben Gamaliel, who was named for his father a daughter who married a priest named Simon ben Nathaniel. In the Christian tradition, Gamaliel is recognized as a Pharisee, doctor of the Jewish law. Acts of the Apostles, chapter 5, spoke of Gamaliel as a man held in a great esteem by all Jews, who spoke to not condemn the apostles of Yeshua in Acts 5 and 34 to death, and as a Jewish law teacher, Paul the apostle in Acts chapter 22, verse 3. In Jewish tradition, in the Talmud, Gamaliel is described as bearing the title Nasi, or prince, or Rabban, our master, as the president of the great Sanhedrin in Jerusalem. Although some dispute this, it is not doubt that he held a senior position in the highest court in Jerusalem. Gamaliel holds a reputation in the Mishnah for being one of the greatest teachers in all of annals of Judaism. Since Rabban Gamaliel the Elder died, there has been no more reverence for the law, and purity and pity died out at the same time. Gamaliel's authority on question of religious law is suggested by two Mishnaic anecdotes in which the king and queen asked for his advice about rituals.
Right.
The identity of the king and queen is questioned, is not given.
So there is writing on Gamaliel that he was teaching, or a queen and a king, or king or queen, was asking his advice, right? Read.
But generally thought to be Herod Agrippa.
King Herod, read.
And his wife, Sapros the Nabatean.
These are people in the Bible, right? Go to Christian tradition. This is interesting, though. I want you to see something in Christian tradition.
In Christian tradition, the Acts of the Apostle introduced Gamaliel as a Pharisee and celebrated doctor of the Mosaic Law in Acts chapter 5, verse 34 to 40. In a larger context, Peter and the other apostles all are described as being persecuted before the Sanhedrin for counting to preach the gospel despite the Jewish authority having previously prohibited it. The passage describes Gamaliel as presenting an argument against killing the apostles, reminding them about the previous revolt of Thaddeus, Judas, and of Galilee, which had collapsed quickly after the death of those individuals. Gamaliel advised was accepted after his concluded argument. The book of Acts later goes on describes Paul the apostle, recounting that although born in Tarsus, he was brought up in Jerusalem at the feet of Gamaliel and taught according to the perfect manner of the law of the fathers. No details are given about which teaching Paul adopted from Gamaliel, as it is assumed that as a Pharisee, Paul was already recognized in the community, and that time a devout Jew, and how Gamaliel influenced aspect of Christianity is unmentioned. However,
there was another piece. Let me see if I go down. Yeah, right here. Go here. And, yep. Because he eventually converted, or there's legends that he converted to Christianity. Right? Let's read.
Veneration, all right? Ecclesiastical tradition maintains that Gamaliel had embraced the Christian faith, and his tolerance attitude towards early Christians is explained by this. According to Phatios I of Constantinople, he was baptized by St. Peter and John the Apostle.
So the early writings, early church fathers, so-called, or early writing, there's writings that he eventually got baptized by the disciples, right? Keep reading.
Together with his son Abibo and Nicodemus, the Clementine literature suggests that he maintains secrecy about the conversion and continues to be a member of the Sanhedrin for the purpose of covertly assisting his fellow Christians.
So what happened, he stood within the Sanhedrin sect, but he was still a Christian, right? And there was another guy. Nicodemus too. So, okay, let's deal with this. If they got baptized and this is something that it became a situation that was still working with the Sanhedrin, which was clearly a hostile institution against Christians, right? This shows you that sometimes as Christians, we have to work in stealth. You understand that? You have to work with the inside, from the inside out, not from the outside in. So sometimes there may be a situation that you should probably be let's say, you may be a police officer or a judge or a warrant in the jail. I'd rather you to be there than somebody else, just in case I get arrested. You can look out for me, right? God forbid, right? So sometimes you cannot demonize these jobs as long as they don't compromise your faith. Stay in these jobs. You may be useful in the future for the kingdom, you be in those positions. As this brother, because obviously he saw something in the disciples. They said, wait a minute, before we kill these guys, remember that the Sanhedrin wanted to kill the disciples. When you read the story in the Acts, we got to kill these guys. And when there was another article, I didn't have time to print it out, that the Shamiti, what word is Shamiti? I pronounce Shamiti or Shami?
Shamiti.
Shamiti.
Yeah.
Okay, it goes in that they were not rivals, but it was a different sect that was more strict, right? And then the article says that, and did the Shamitite sect or school of thought died out after the temple got destroyed. That's what the historian says. But what they're saying that the Jews that wanted to kill the disciples came out of that sect because they were more zealous. Matter of fact, some historians said that the Semitic school became the Zealots and were the people that were responsible for bringing the uprising in what's the last stronghold that were holding the Jews? Masada. So it was just the more strict Israelite and then the less, hey, let's work it out and things of that nature. And when you when you look at the school of thought of the Samuel, what they basically believe, or their school, was that the Romans are ordained by God because they're the fourth beast. So let's not fight against them. Let's work with them because, like Gamaliel said, when they would say, wait a minute, don't kill these guys, because look what happened to the people that thought it was something. With Judas at the time of the taxing, he died out. So if you fight against the Romans, or you fight against these Christians, and they is of the will of the Most High, you fight against the Most High. And if it's not the Most High, they're gonna be destroyed. The Most High is gonna deal with them. So he came from that thought. Now the Shamatel, okay, no, that's his word. They're more militant. We got to take the kingdom back. We got to, get arms and the Most High. So they came out of the school of thought out of the Maccabees. Some people say that the Maccabees are the precursor of that school of thought because they took arms. Right. Shamati? Shamat? Yeah, this group right here. The Shamite? Yeah. The Shamite. S-H-A-M-M-A-I-T-E. Shamite. Okay. So to kind of give you a historical reference, right? Okay, so let's go back. So, what school of thought will be more aligned with the teaching of Christ? Gamaliel. So were the Maccabees wrong by revolting? But isn't that the will of the Most High? Right? So these are challenging questions sometimes, right? And for the record, they were not wrong, because what happened when you read the entire story, they wanted to negotiate with him. He came by, they gave them some money, they were trying to, but when they began to pollute the temple and pass a law that you cannot, circumcise your children, you cannot sacrifice, and okay, that went too far. So in the same way with us, yeah, we could work with you as long as you don't compromise our religious beliefs. We could work with you, right? But if you start passing laws, we can't keep Shabbat, you can't read the Bible, or you can only read this Bible that is ordained by the government and all that. Okay, then do we become Maccabees, or what do we do? Or do we become the Christians in the time of the Roman prosecution? Do we just take my head just to kill me? You understand? Or do we be like the Maccabees, take arms? Right? Those are questions we have to. Something like Maccabees. I got the shotgun ready, right? Come see me, Elder. I got you. Right? So those are questions that we have to start, and things of that nature. And as a church, we're gonna be faced with these decisions. Do we fight? Do we get arrested? Do we just buckle down? Do we conform? Those are challenging questions and things of that nature that we have to go through, right? But these are the kind of things to kind of show you what the disciples did. And if they did it, that means, okay, we could kind of guide by that and things of that nature, okay? Now, but for the record, yes, you do defend yourself. Even Christ says, take a sword, throw your coat and take a sword, okay? So you could, so sometimes it's time for being a Maccabees, but that's the last result. Okay, so let's read. Back in Acts. Some people are like, I'm ready to go back Maccabees out right now.
Going back on 22.
Where we at?
Went back to 20.
Right. So just go to Eastern Orthodox.
Okay.
There's a different tradition on what happened to Gamaliel and things that you could end there.
All right. The Eastern Orthodox Church venerates Gamaliel as a saint, and he is commemorated on August 2nd, the date when tradition holds that his relic was found, along with those of Stephen, the martyr, Abibus, Gamaliel's son, and Nicodemus. The traditional liturgical calendar of the Catholic Church celebrates the same feast day and finding of relics of August 3rd.
Yeah, so when you read the Talmud or what have you, or the commentary of anybody that could have been converted to Christ, they usually showing him. Okay, it's like when you read the commentaries, like he was the high priest of that year, although some Jewish scholars disagreed, or they'll try to put a little black light because there's a connection in the Bible that he gave some form of favoritism to the to the Christians. You understand? So you got to kind of read it from beginning to source. So I don't know if he got converted or not. There is clues, circumstantially clues, either that shows that he showed favored in to the Jews, to the Christians, and eventually converted himself. There's clearly documentation, but we don't know for sure. And what scholars said, because the Jews that wanted to kill the disciples in Christ, most scholars says that they came from the school of Shamati, because they were more like gun-ho, Maccabees, kill them right now. They wanted to get rid of the Romans. They were like more Zeal type, right? So let's read. We're back to chapter 22. Let's go back to 22.
All right, family. So we're back at Acts chapter 22. And we're going to start at verse 5. As also the high priest doth bear me witness, and all the state of the elders, from whom I received letters unto the brethren, and went to Damascus to bring them which were there bound unto Jerusalem, for to be punished. And it came to pass that as I made my journey, I was come nigh unto Damascus about noon. Suddenly there shone from heaven a great light round about me. And I fell unto the ground, and I heard a voice saying unto me, Saul, Saul, why persecute thou me? And I answered, Who art thou, Lord?
Come on.
And he said unto me, I am Messiah of Nazareth, of whom thou persecuted. And they that were with me saw indeed the light.
They saw the light. They saw something.
And were afraid.
And were afraid. Read.
But they heard not the voice of him that spake to me.
They heard not the voice that spake to me. Right? Go to Acts 9 and 7. Because Paul rehearsed the story of his event 3 times. Acts 9, Acts 22, Acts 26, right? We're going to go, but there's a contradiction in the surface if you unlearn, right? On those 2 stories. Let's read. So they saw the light, but they didn't hear the voice. And let's go to Acts 9 and 7.
Acts chapter 9, verse 7. And the men which journeyed with him stood speechless, hearing a voice, but seeing no man. And saw
wait a minute. Did they hear the voice or didn't hear the voice? What happened? See, Paul's right in the Bible, throw it out. Just become Muslims, right? Just throw it out. Just become atheists, right? Okay, I think I did this lesson a while back. Who could take a crack at this? Say again? Okay, what else? Yes, you're close. Anybody else? Okay. Let's go into the word heard, voice, on both examples, right? So let's go there real quick.
Word hearing and the word voice.
Yeah, the word hearing. Let's go to the word hearing, right? So let's go to Acts, back to Acts 22, the first one. Matter of fact, let's start at 9. Okay. So read that again. We had Acts 9
and 7.
And 7, right?
Acts 9 and 7. And the men which journeyed with him stood speechless.
Now, there's a difference between Acts 9 and Acts 22 and 26. He tells the story 3 times. Well, he tells the story 2 times. Acts 9 is the narrator, the curator of Acts. He's telling the story. And Acts 22 and 26, the narrator is quoting Paul. Okay, that different, right? So let's read.
And the men which journeyed with him stood speechless, hearing a voice, but seeing no man.
So get the word voice and get the word hear.
So this is the word for the word hearing is Greek 191, akuo, and it means to hear, an audience, to give an audience, to come to the ears, the hearer, to be noised, be reported, understand.
What?
To understand.
To understand. Right? Keep that in mind. Go to in the voice. Give me the voice there.
This is the Greek word for the word voice, G5456, phone, and it means a tone, an address,
An address,
saying or language, noise,
a what?
noise,
A what?
noise.
Okay. So the word heard can mean to understand something or to literally hear something. So, you ever have your spouse calling you, babe, what's the bread? What's right? You hear them, but you don't make out what they're saying. Right? And then you'll say, babe, what you said? I didn't hear you. Technically, you heard something. Right? You heard something, some mumbling, right? But you were too busy watching the show or whatever you were doing. So sometimes heard can also means not understanding. I'm going to show you an example, right? Okay, so let's read. Let's go back to Acts 22, right? The word voice, it could also be translated as a what? Sound. Tones. They heard something. So they could hear it, but they didn't understand it. Read.
Acts chapter 22, verse 9. And they that were with me saw indeed the light.
They saw a light.
And were afraid.
And were afraid.
But they heard not the voice of him.
But they heard not the voice of him. Now is the opposite. Whether they heard it before, now they didn't hear it, right? Right? They didn't see it in the first one. They didn't see any man. So all that we know, the both story agreed. There was a light. They saw the light. They didn't see the man, but they saw the light, right? And the only difference, in one version, they heard it. In the other version, they didn't hear it, right? So let's read. Let's go into the Greek. The Greek on this one.
So this is the Greek for the word here, to hear. G191, akuo.
Which is the same word here in Acts 9, right? Read.
And for the word voice, G5456. And fune, which is the same one as well.
Okay, and then put the, it says, heard no man or heard no voice?
Heard not the voice.
Okay, give me the voice.
So the voice, G5456, the word is fune.
Which means the same, so the same word in Acts 9 is in Acts 22.
Yep.
Correct, okay. It's just the only difference, there's a not between those two words. One says not, the other one says no, it didn't say not, right?
Yeah.
So which is a contradiction for the layman, right? But like the other brother said, is that they heard something, they didn't understand it. Similar to when you go to John chapter 12. John chapter 12. So just, understand, this is the precept with that, right? John chapter 12, verse 29.
I'll start at verse 20.
28, yep.
St. John chapter 12, verse 28.
Come on.
Father, glorify thy name. Then came there a voice from heaven.
The word there, voice, is the same word. A sound. Read.
I have both glorified it and will glorify it again. Verse 29. The people therefore that stood by and heard it.
They heard it.
Said that it thundered.
They didn't understand it. It was a thunder. Read.
Others said an angel spake to him.
No, I think that was an angel. And read.
Verse 30. Yeshua answered and said, this voice came not because of me.
This sound, same word. Now, what was the sound? Go back. What the actual sound or what is actually said?
From verse 28. Father, glorify thy name. Then came there a voice from heaven.
A sound, same word, from heaven, saying what?
I have both glorified it and will glorify it again. The people therefore that stood by and heard it said that it thundered.
Some say it was a thunder. So the word heard. So these are all the same Greek words. They didn't understand it. So the word hear can mean, if I didn't hear you, it could mean that I literally heard something, but I mistook you as a thunder or something else. This other person would say, no, I think it was an angel. You guys understand that? Let's read.
The people therefore that stood by and heard it said that it thundered. Others said, an angel spake to him. Yeshua answered and said, the voice came not because of me.
The voice came not because of me, read.
But for your sake.
For your sake, read.
Now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of the world be cast out.
Okay, so this is my personal theory. Reason why some people did not understand it and some people thought it was an angel, I believe because the Most High was speaking, or the angel that was speaking on behalf of the Most High was speaking in Hebrew. So when you had the average Jew did not know Hebrew in its totality. Knew some words, just like me with Spanish, right? I can understand, but if you're speaking too fast, well, I'm a dick. Slow down, my man. Wait. Talk to me in English, my friend, right? Hebrew, right? You could defend yourself with Hebrew, barakatah, right? But if somebody breaks down, starts talking to you in Hebrew, whoa, slow down, right? Same situation. And in chapter 26, go to 26 of Acts. So, because we could clearly know the difference between thunder and someone saying, I have magnified him and I will magnify him again, right? That's what the Father said. That's two different. You could make those things out. You understand? I could maybe see people arguing if a Trans Am runs through here, room, people misunderstand. Without thunder, that was a car, right? Because it's similar sounds. Unless if the Most High already speak like a thunder, right? Christ spoke his voice like the sound of many waters, like thundering. But if you speak it in Hebrew, and you don't really understand Hebrew, like, I think that was an angel speaking, brother. Because you can make out the sounds in things of that nature, right? It's like if we didn't know Hebrew at all, and a big thunder said, Barakatah! Right? We'd be like, and some people studying Hebrew were like, that sounds like black, right? Because it's going to come out hard. It's going to come like thunder, right? So that's the reason why they were trying to figure out what it is, because I think when you look at the 70 angels that was divided into the 70 nations, each one was speaking the language of those nations. And our angel, the Father is speaking the language of creation, which is the Hebrew. You got your next?
Done.
Okay, let's go there.
This is Acts chapter 26, verse 13. At midday, O king, I saw the way of light from heaven, above the brightness of the sun, shining round about me, and them which journey with me. And when we were all fallen to the earth, I heard a voice speaking unto me, saying in the Hebrew tongue.
You see, in the Hebrew tongue. So it could, if you speak it in Hebrew, like a thunder, and you cannot make it out, or it's going to sound like thunder, you will not understand. That's why it gives you those three concepts. So you go to, you break it down with John 12, 29 and 30. Some say it was an angel speaking, others say it was thunder. But everybody heard it, but they not all didn't understand it. And then you go to, now the Hebrew part, that's circumstantial. That's my theory, but because there's no scripture that says that. But you should stay in John 12. They all heard it, but some understood. Some thought it was an angel. Others thought it was thunder. Okay, all right. So let's go to Acts. We're almost done.
Right, so we're back at Acts chapter 22, verse 9. And they that were with me saw indeed the light and were afraid, but they heard not the voice of him that spake to me.
Oh, well, yeah.
22, verse 9.
Okay, there you go.
Verse 10. And I said, what shall I do, Lord? And the Lord said unto me, arise and go to Damascus, and there it shall be told thee of all things which are upon for thee to do. And when I could not see for the glory of that light, being led by the hand of them that were with me, I came to Damascus.
So he could not see because of the glory of the light. I mean, he got blind. The thing blinded him for 3 days. Right? Read.
And one, Ananias, a devout man according to the law, having a good report of all the Jews which dwelt there, came unto me and stood and said unto me, Brother Saul, receive thy sight. And the same hour I looked up upon him, and he said, the power of our fathers have chosen thee, that thou shouldest know his will, and see the just one, and shouldest hear the voice of his mouth. For thou shalt be his witness unto all men of what thou hast seen and heard. And now why tarriest thou? Arise and be baptized, and wash away thy sins, calling on the name of the Lord.
Come on.
And it came to pass that when I was come again to Jerusalem, even while I prayed in the temple, I was in a trance.
Now, this is way after the Holy Spirit came in, the day of Pentecost, showing you Paul still had to get baptized. Right? Read.
Verse 18. And saw him saying unto me, make haste and get thee quickly out of Jerusalem, for they would not receive thy testimony concerning me.
Now you think about it. You are well respected in your community under the teaching of Gamaliel and Hillel and things of that nature. And now you are converting to a new sect that just came out of the blue that is sweeping, Jerusalem. Now they're going to have some level of resentment towards you, right? Read.
Verse 19. And I said, Lord, they know that I am in prison and beat in every synagogue them that believe on thee. And when the blood of thy martyr Stephen was shed, I also was standing by.
But Paul has a problem. Like, listen, I was responsible for a lot of these people getting arrested and suffering, persecution. I don't know how I'm gonna, how this is gonna work out. Read.
And consenting unto his death, and kept the remnant, the raiment of them that slew him.
Yeah, I still got it in my living room, right? I ain't good. Should I give it back? I don't know, right? So it's awkward here. Read.
And he said unto me, depart, for I will send thee far hence unto the Gentiles. And they gave him audience unto his word, and then lifted up their voices and said, away with such a fellow from the earth, for it is not fit that he should live. And as they cried,
so these people were probably now becoming under the teaching, or these were the people probably influenced under the teaching of Shemati or Shamat, because they were more strict. They were more like kill them all, ask questions later. They were like more, things of that nature. Because the Hillel group, they were more like kinder, more like let people be, kind of situation, right? Read.
Verse 23. And as they cried out and cast off their clothes and threw dust into the air, the chief captain commanded him to be brought into the castle and bade that he should be examined by scourging, that he might know whereof they cried so against him. And as they bound him with tongues, Paul...
So what do you think was the motivation why they hated Paul so much? Not the Christians, but the Jews. It's like this. Paul came from a prestige school. He was when you go into the writings of, the history of Paul, he was getting prepped to be like a high priest, like one of these high Sanhedrin people, right? But so therefore it's like one brother in modern times if a brother, a high respected brother from another camp comes and a part of our church, that camp be like, he's wicked, he's evil, get him out of here, right? They're gonna look at every wrong thing that he did. I remember 3 years ago, I lent him $3, right? Right, because it's just if the leader or someone who's well respected in the community goes into the opposite team, the team is going to be like, resentment towards that. So a lot of that was the motivation. Because what did Paul did? What did he accuse him? They were accusing him that he brought men into the temple to defile it, which wasn't true. They couldn't prove it. It was not really minute stuff, right? It wasn't really nothing worth of death. Read.
And as they bound him with tongues, Paul said unto the centurion that stood by, is it lawful for you to scourge a man that is a Roman and uncondemned? And when the centurion heard that,
what does this show us with Paul? Paul, he was a Roman citizen, right? What's the equivalent of that now? Give an example. Okay, I'm going to give you an example, right? We're street preaching, right? Sometimes I got friends and families that are from all next to the world and things of that nature. And I got people that, in the law enforcement. And, sometimes you got friends and family, they give you a card, your, PBA card. I have used that before. You understand? You get stopped. Oh, listen, my brother's so-and-so. He's in law enforcement. Okay. Oh, yeah, all right. So the guy just, block this corner or whatever. All right, thanks a lot. Right? But if I'm cursing him out, right? I'm going to be in jail that night calling hey, Joe, listen, we didn't use a PBA card. Yeah, well, Most High, right? I'm standing for the Most High. So you got to use wisdom when you're dealing with authority. So he realized, okay, I'm a Roman citizen. I'm going to use that card to get out of this situation. It's until, is it lawful for, I'm a Roman, I'm asking. I don't want you to get in trouble. Is it lawful for you to do this to a Roman? Because I'm a Roman citizen. But Paul knew what he was doing. So sometimes you got to know how to, use righteous manipulation to try to get out of the situation, right? Read.
When the centurion heard that, he went and told the chief captain, saying, take heed what thou doest, for this man is a Roman.
Right? So now his status became, this is the ironic thing. He had to go to the enemy. He had to go to the fourth beast, Rome, to get protected from his people. They wanted to kill him. See that? Read.
Then the chief captain came and said unto him.
It's like this whole thing with this brother that is calling himself the Comforter, right? He got arrested. This is the ironic thing. The IRS is actually looking out for the members of the church that he was robbing. You understand? And when you read the article, they took about $500,000 that he had still. They're holding that, and they are training members of the church to know how to properly run a church. So here's Rome, here's America, wicked America. Babylon the Great that we have to flee. Have to come in and protect those lost brothers following this guy, calling himself the Holy Spirit, and they're protecting their money. The enemy is actually into defense of the people of the church that have been misled by this guy. You got to use wisdom. Yes, this country is evil and wicked and all that and things of that nature. But guess what? It was ordained by the Most High. And it's going to stand and it's going to fall when it's ordained by the Most High. So what are you going to fight for? Work within the system, right? Yeah, I'm not saying go in and vote and all that and yada, yada, yada and things of that nature. Like, I'm going to give you an example. What's that brother's Nazi? Okay, he's running for mayor in Atlanta, right? He's a Hebrew brother, right? I'd rather him there than Now, I'm not gonna get involved with politics, but let's just say we do have a church in Atlanta. You guys know that, right? Now, this was an ironic thing, what's going on with this thing. I think he came out. Is he gonna win? Probably not. But who knows, right? It's all the wisdom Most High. And literally when he announced his announcements, boom, some allegation about him being a child molester came up. Now, I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's not. I'm not saying, but I think it's just very ironic that he runs for office. And see, and for the record, I used to work for a politician. I used to work for a lobbyist company, things that were dealing with, but specifically dealing with correctional contract, right? Well, I used to work for a lobbyist that used to work with politicians. When you're running for office, somebody's running for office, right? And who is prestige, they will see who's running against them. And they don't care how insignificant they may be. Okay, there's 12 people running for my office. Find out what they pass. Find out any crime, any ticket, anything, speeding, anything. I need to know it right now. And they attack it because the way they kind of look at it, not see that brother, I don't know his, I know I'm animal cost, but I don't know the whole allegation if it's true or not, whatever. But if he's out the way, he's not a problem anymore. So if you got 5 candidates and you can find dirt on 3 to get rid of them, all you got to do is worry about 2. You understand? That's the reason why when you deal with these college, private club, what you call that, severities and all, what you call that, severities and all that, and these private clubs, part of the membership is you got to do something immoral, like the skulls and bones and that. It's all designed. Why? Because that's what they got on your. Look at this picture of this candidate. What he's doing with that dog, that midget, right, and a dead body. I'm telling you, part of the skull and bones that you have to have, there's children here with dead bodies. And they do this ritual with the skull of, what's his name? Geronimo. They take the skull of Geronimo and they do some thing with, it's like weird stuff. But it's twofold. Yeah, they're dealing with the worshiping different gods and all that, but they're already setting up the system to compromise you so that just in case you get a line, we got these pictures, Ak. We got these videos, right? And and I truly believe you have these parties, these, all kinds of crazy parties, and I believe they got these women go have sex with him, and then years later, he touched me, he molested me, he drugged me. And since you had sex with her, and you can't deny it, you have to say, well, no, the allegation's not true, it was consent and all that, but already the damage is already there. You understand what I'm saying? So that's how way they operate, right? Right, so let's read.
Verse 27. Then the chief captain came and said unto him, Tell me, art thou a Roman? He said, Yea. And the chief captain answered, With a great sum I attained this freedom. And Paul said, But I was freeborn.
So the reason why the Roman centurion said that, because you have to kind of obtain a freedom. You have to buy that citizenship, or not buy it, but you have to work for it, and you have to be from a prestige family. So you're either a citizen or a slave in the Roman world. A slave, you cannot be walking around freely from town to town. If you're a slave, you have to be under your master. And you would usually identify with a hat, like a little hat, Roman hat and things of that nature, cap. You would say, okay, that's a slave. He didn't have to do all that because he was a free man or free citizen of Rome, right? So read.
Verse 29. Then straightway they departed from him, which should have examined him. And the chief captain also was afraid, after he knew that he was a Roman,
Come on.
And because he had bound him.
Right. So he was concerned because now there's certain rules we're dealing with Roman citizens versus non-Roman citizens. Read.
On the morrow, because he would have known the certainty wherefore he was accused of the Jews, he loosed them from his bands and commanded the chief priests and all the councils to appear and brought Paul down and set him before them. Chapter 23. And Paul, earnestly beholding the council, said, Men and brethren, I have lived in all good conscience.
The word council means what? Who he's in front of? Beholding the Greek. What's the Greek word for council in Greek? Sanhedrin. Get that real quick. Sanhedrin. So he was in front of the Sanhedrin council. All right, read.
Men and brethren, I have lived in all good conscience before the Most High until this day.
So this is his first trial. He's officially at trial. So now the soldiers are giving him more respect. These are Roman soldiers. These are not Israelite soldiers. These are Roman soldiers. And now they're going through the trial, but they don't have him tied up anymore. They're giving him some leeway because they found out he was a Roman soldier. Roman citizen. Read.
And the high priest Ananias commanded them that stood by him to smite him on the mouth. Then said Paul unto him, The Most High shall smite thee, thou whited wall.
So he's standing there. He's like, you slap, you slap me and things. And let the Most High, strike you down. But keep reading. I want you to see something. I want you to see something.
Then said Paul unto him, The Most High shall smite thee, thou whited wall. For thou sittest thou to judge me after the law.
Come on.
And commandest me to be smitten contrary to the law. And they.
So he was like, this is lawful. Me getting hit before my trial, because they had certain things. Remember in the scripture that says if there's it is controversy between two men, and then one is guilty and things of that nature, that you will give him 30 stripes, not above 30 stripes and all that. So there was some legal thing within the law. It's like, wait a minute, you striking me before I'm been found guilty. Right? Read.
Verse 4. And they that stood by said, Revilest thou the Most High priest?
Right? So revile you, the high priest. Read.
Then said Paul.
I
wish not, brethren, that he was the high priest.
I didn't know he was the high priest.
For it is written, Thou shalt not speak evil of the rulers of thy people.
So what did Paul do here? For it is written that you should not. So he got hit. What's going on here? The trial haven't even started yet. You already hitting me? Right? Let the Most High judge you. And then, so obviously he didn't know who hit him. You understand? And then they reveal, this is a high priest. Oh, my bad. Because the scripture says you should not revile the elders of the community of your people. So this is profound here. Now, did Paul set this? Because that high priest in the Sanhedrin in today, Jesus Christ, Yeshua, that camp was the camp, the set of the Nazareth, right? That's what they were called, right? Outside of Jerusalem, they were called Christians, Christos, right? So, but that sect had an agreement with the Roman Empire to kind of govern Jerusalem, right? So he used that law to say, okay, now I know who I'm dealing with here. Let me give him, I didn't know who you were. But technically, Paul was right. Are you judging me before the law, but yet you claiming to follow the law? That the Most High, you understand what I'm saying? So it worked for him because they saw, okay, he was right. And when he spoke against the elders or the elder of that community, he said, oh, my apologies. You understand? So he was using wisdom. Okay, read.
Verse 6. But when Paul perceived that one part was Sadducees and the other Pharisees, he cried out in the council, Men and brethren, I am a Pharisee, son of a Pharisee. of the hope of a resurrection of the dead, I am called in question. And when he had so said, there arose a dissension between the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And the multitude was divided. For the Sadducees said that there is no resurrection, neither angel nor spirit. But the Pharisees confessed both. But there arose a great cry.
And the reason why, because the Sadducees only acknowledge the 5 books of Moses. They don't deal with, so when you read the 5 books of Moses, I don't believe there is any mention of any angels. The word, there is an angel in not Joshua, Genesis, the angel Gabriel, right? Then he went to Lot. Yeah, so I wonder why they didn't believe. Maybe they didn't even acknowledge Genesis. Maybe they just acknowledged the Torah, literally like the law. So from Exodus to Deuteronomy, maybe. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Who knows? We have to do that research. So let's read it.
And there arose a great cry, and the scribes that were of the Pharisees part arose and strove, saying, we find no evil in this man. But if a spirit or an angel has spoken to him, let us not fight against the Most High. And when there arose a great dissension, the chief captain, fearing lest Paul should have been pulled in pieces of them, commanded the soldiers to go down and take him by force from among them.
So in the middle of his trial, Paul already set the stage for his exit. Okay, I'm going to tell this Roman soldier that I'm a Roman citizen. So he's going to, give me that respect. I see the room here. There's 2 sects of Judaism. And I know they're plagued with they doctrinally speaking. Let me just have a conversation about resurrection, because in Pharisees to kind of, now what he did, he had the Pharisees on his side. Now the Sadducees like, kill him, this and that, yada, 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 because they were driven about, he was a Pharisee. So there was division among them. And then the Roman soldier that he already told them he's a Roman citizen, let me get this guy out of here because I don't want to get in trouble, because if a Roman citizen get killed in my watch, there's a problem. Read.
Verse 11. And the night following, the Lord stood by him and said, be of good cheer, Paul, for as thou hast testified of me in Jerusalem, so must thou bear witness also at Rome. And when it was day, a certain of the Jews banded together and bound themselves under a curse, saying that they would neither eat nor drink till they have killed Paul.
So, who you think of what sect were doing this? Exactly. Then later on became the Zealots. You get what I'm saying? So because now in the middle of a trial, they're pissed off because they were arguing with each other. The Roman soldiers came in, interrupted all that, get Paul out of there. Now I'm going to kill this guy. Right? Read.
Verse 13. And there were more than 40 which had made this conspiracy. And they came to the chief priests and elders and said, we have bound ourselves under a great curse, that we will eat nothing until we have slain Paul.
So obviously there was a sect of the audience that saw this trial that convicted Paul. You get what I'm saying? But because the Romans took him out of there, they said, okay, I don't care what the Romans did. If I see him, he's going to stay where I see him, right? Read.
And they came unto the chief priests and elders and said, we have bound ourselves under a great curse, and they will eat nothing until we have slain Paul. Now therefore ye with the council signified to the chief captain that he bring him down onto you tomorrow.
So bring him down, remember, because the castle was on high. So he took him to the castle. He said, listen, bring him back tomorrow, but we can finish this trial. But once we see this dude, we're going to take him out. Right? Read.
Something more perfectly concerning him. And we, or ever he comes near, are ready to kill him. And when Paul's sister's son heard of their lying in wait, he went and entered into the castle and told Paul. Then Paul called one of the centurions onto him and said, "Bring this young man onto the chief captain, for he have a certain thing to tell him."
So when Paul found out there was a hit on his life, he said, "Hey, I got to talk to you or something. Tomorrow when I'm supposed to go back to this trial, there's some people that are going to try to take me out." Right? Read.
So he took him and brought him to the chief captain and said, "Paul the prisoner called me onto him and prayed me to bring this young man onto thee, who have something to say unto thee." Then the chief captain took him by the hand and went with him aside privately and asked him.
And now you got to also, yes, Paul was smart, he was witty and all that, but it was really the Most High creating the circumstance, allow him to get out of that situation. So he was not that witty. You get what I'm saying? Sometimes you got to leave it in the Most High, because it's only by chance that somebody heard it, that was related to him, that went to him. You understand? It's all by chance. That's why sometimes there's been situations that certain things have happened to me that I experienced as a negative, or I took it as a negative thing. And then years later, I was able to use that information or that data, that experience to help me get out of the situation. You know, so those are things that the Most High sometimes puts in your path. And if you don't understand it, hold on to it. I mean, just relax. It's going to all come back around. It's all part of the Most High. Read.
Verse 19, verse 20. And he said, "The Jews have agreed to desire thee that thou wouldest bring down Paul tomorrow into the council, as though they would inquire somewhat of him more perfectly. But do not thou yield unto them, for they lie in wait for him of them more than 40 men.
Come on.
Which have bound themselves with an oath, that they will neither eat nor drink till they have killed him. And now are they ready, looking for a promise from thee."
So how great the Most High is. So imagine this whole scene. You have 40 men. And they, I guess obviously they were not too bright, because they made a vow not to eat until they kill Paul.
Right.
So they're already hungry. And they got these 40 dudes like, "I got this knife right here." And they see these 200 soldiers like, "We need more people." So you could imagine that scene, Paul coming back with the most, with 200 soldiers of the empire of Rome, aka the fourth beast. So you see how the Most High operates? He uses even your enemy for your protection. He'll use people that are against you, your adversary. Right? Let's read.
And he called unto him two centurions, saying, "Make ready 200 soldiers to go to Caesarea, and horsemen 70.
What chapter and verse you in?
Verse 23.
Come on.
"And spearmen 200, and at the third hour of the night, and provide them beasts, that they may set Paul on, and bring him safe unto Felix the governor."
Come on.
"And he wrote a letter after this manner: Claudius Lysias, unto the most excellent governor Felix, sendeth greeting. This man was taken up of the Jews, and should have been killed of them. Then came I with an army, and rescued him, and understood that he was a Roman. And when I would have known the cause whereof, they accused him, and brought him forth into their council, who I perceived to be accused of questions of their law, but to have nothing laid to his charge, worthy of death or bonds.
Come on.
And when it was told me that the Jews laid wait for the man, I sent straightway to thee, and gave commandment to his accusers also, to say before thee what they have against him.
Come on.
Farewell. Then the soldiers, as it was commanded them, took Paul and brought him by night to Antipris. And on the morrow they left the horsemen to go with him, and returned to the castle. Who, when they came to Caesarea and delivered the epistle to the governor, presented Paul also before him. And when the governor had read the letter, he asked of what province he was. And when he understood that he was of Sicilia, "And I will hear thee," said he. when thy accusers are also come.
Okay, so jump down, start 24. We're going to jump down, set the stage.
Acts 24:1. And after 5 days, Ananias, the high priest, descended with the elders and with a certain orator named Tertullus, on to inform the governor against Paul. And when he had called for Tertullus, began to accuse him, saying, seeing that by thee we enjoy great quietness, and that very worthy deeds are done unto this nation by thy providence. We have accepted always and in all places, most noble Felix, with all thankfulness.
Come on.
Notwithstanding that I be not further tedious unto thee, I pray thee that thou wouldest hear us of thy clemency of few words.
Come on.
For we have found this man a pestilent fellow, a mover of sedition among the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes.
A sect of Nazarene, right? So they were demonizing Paul. Read.
Who also have gone about to profane the temple, whom we took and would have judged according to our law.
Come on.
But the chief captain, Lysias, came upon us with a great violence and took him away out of our hand.
So now you have the high priest. There was probably a Herod, because the high priest were either Israelite is sold out or Herod, the family, be married into, right? And he was breaking down that this guy defiled the temple, right? And things of that nature, which he didn't, but they were accusing him of that, right? Read.
Commanding his accusers to come unto thee, by examining of whom thyself makest, take a knowledge of all these things.
Come on.
Whereof we accuse him. And the Jews also assented, saying that these things were so. Then Paul, after the governor had beckoned unto him to speak, answered, for as much as I know that thou hast been of many years a judge unto this nation, I do more cheerfully answer for myself.
Come on.
Because that thou mayest understand that there are yet but 12 days since I went up to Jerusalem to worship. And they neither found me in the temple disputing with any man, neither raising up the people, neither in the synagogues, nor in the city. Neither can they prove things whereof they now accuse me.
So this was the time, remember when the disciples told Paul, go into the temple, purify yourself and all that? So he was doing a ritualistic thing that Jews were doing, and they gave respect, but then they were bringing false witness against him and they said, wait a minute, 12 days ago, I was in the temple purifying myself. Give me the people that were, they're accusing me that I defiled the temple. Show me the evidence, right? Read.
Verse 14. But this I confess unto thee, that after the way which they call heresy, so worship I the power of my fathers, believing all things which are written in the law and in the prophets.
So what they, throughout his, I don't want to use the word sneaky because that's a negative, but him using wisdom, what thing would among that he did not compromise? The gospel. See, when he brought out the gospel in the first meeting, when he knew there was a Sanhedrin, when he knew there was a Sadducees and Pharisees, he brought the gospel, but he brought it in from the perspective of, by the way, because he could have just started dealing with the gospel. But he started, well, brother, I'm a Pharisee, the son of a Pharisee, yada, yada, yada. And then he brought out the gospel. I was in the road to Damascus, and this what happened. So what did he did? He did not deny Christ, but realized that he could use the fact that he's a Pharisee to his advantage. So he stuck that in there. You understand that? But now, when they were asking him about all the other stuff, the only thing he did not deny, which was true in things of that nature, is that, I'm part of that sect called the Nazarene. You understand? So in the midst of it, one thing he didn't do is deny Christ. So that's the rule of thumb. When you're dealing with the enemy, you could be as sneaky as possible within lawful, but one thing you cannot do you believe in Christ? Yeah. You can't, there's no justification where you say, well, no, because, they're going to take my life and all that. But if you could find to befriend this guy or this police officer or this judge and give them respect and things that and do that. Right? Exactly. Right? Read.
Say, Acts chapter 24, verse 15. And have hope towards the Most High, which they themselves also allow, that there shall be a resurrection of the dead, both of the just and the unjust.
Come on.
And herein do I exercise myself, to have always a conscience void of offense towards the power, and towards men. Not after many years I came to bring alms to my nation, and offerings, whereupon certain Jews from Asia found me purified in the temple, neither with multitude nor with tumult, who ought to have been here before thee.
Come on.
And object.
Yeah, so those Jews of Asia, they accused me to found the temple. Where they at? Right? Read.
If they had aught against me, or else let these same here say, if they have found any evildoings in me, while I stood before the council, except it be for this one voice, that I cry standing among them, touching the resurrection of the dead. I am called in question by you this day. And when Felix heard these things, having more perfect knowledge of that way, he deferred them and said.
So who was Felix? What family? What did he say, having a more perfect knowledge of that way? He referring to Felix. Who was Felix? Somebody give me the Strongs. Sure? Who was Felix? Right? But what family he was related to? Just go to the Strongs. All right, we'll see. But yeah, chapter, let me see, 24. All right. Because he's talking to Felix, right? Okay. Let's find out who's Felix. Got it?
Yep.
All right, let's read it.
All right, so this is from the Blue Letter Bible, the word Felix. A Roman persecutor of Judea, appointed by Emperor Claudius in 53 AD. He ruled the province in the mean, cruel, and profligate manner. His period of office was full of trouble and sedition. Paul was brought to Felix of Caesarea. He was remanded in prison and kept there 2 years in hope of extorting money from him. At the end of the time, Pontius Festus, who appointed this supersede Felix, who on return of Rome was accused by the Jews of Caesarea, and would have suffered a penalty due to the Accusations, thank you, and had not his brother Pallas prevailed with the Emperor Nero and spared. The wife of Felix was Drusilla, daughter
the wife of what?
The wife of Felix was Drusilla.
Drusilla.
Daughter of Herod.
Daughter of who?
Daughter of Herod, Agrippa I.
And when you keep reading chapter 26, she was they call her what? A Judas, or a female, a Jew, but the feminine version of it. Right, Jewish. So the Herod family were converts, Edomites. So when he was married, Felix, to the daughter of Herod, Agrippa, right? Right, keep reading.
Who was his third wife, and whom he persuaded to leave her husband and marry him.
That's the whole thing with John the Baptist. Remember that? You marry your brother's wife, right? But these are all convert Jews, Edomites. You understand that? Okay, to kind of give you the connection. So Felix was married into their family. That's why Paul says, because obviously Felix converted because he had to marry this woman and she was a convert. So he was aware of those Jews' traditions. That's why he said that. Read.
And when Felix heard these things, having more perfect knowledge of that way.
See that? Having a more perfect knowledge of that way, read.
He deferred them and said, when Lycia, the chief captain, shall come down, I will know the uttermost of your matter.
Come on.
And he commanded a centurion to keep Paul and let him have liberty, and that he should forbid none of his acquaintance to minister or come unto him.
Come on.
And after a certain day, when Felix came with his wife Drusilla, which was a Jewess,
You see that? Read.
he sent for
So
Paul.
was she really an Israelite? Blood Israelite? No. Read.
He sent for Paul and heard him concerning the faith in Christ. And as he reasoned of
So when you read in the New Testament, like what was a guy, but he was a Jew. In the New Testament, the Clement, I think it is. Clement. Does not necessarily it does not necessarily mean that he was of the tribe of Judah. You know, it could have been he was a Jew by conversion, right? A Judean. Read.
verse 25. And as he reasoned of the righteousness, temperance, and judgment to come, Felix trembled and answered, Go thy way for this time. When I have a convenient season, I will call for thee. He hoped also that the money should have been given him of Paul, that he might loose him. Wherefore he sent for him the oftener and communed with him. And after 2 years, Porcius Festus came into Felix's room, and Felix willing to show the Jews a pleasure.
Okay, so keep reading. Where are you? 27?
Yeah.
So pick it up. Well, yeah, pick it up at verse 25. We're going to set the stage, and then we're going to jump down to verse 13 when he's in front of Herod or Agrippa. Pick it up at verse 5.
Acts 25, verse 1.
25, verse 1.
Now, when Festus was come into the province, after 3 days he ascended from Caesarea to Jerusalem. Then the high priest and the chief of the Jews informed him against Paul and besought him and desired favor against him, that he would send for him to Jerusalem.
Come on.
Laying wait in the way to kill him.
Come on.
But Festus answered that Paul should be kept at Caesarea, and that he himself would depart shortly thither.
Come on.
Let them therefore, said he, which among you are able, go down with me, and accuse these men, if there be any wickedness in him. And when he had tarried among them more than 10 days, he went down unto Caesarea, and the next day, sitting on the judgment seat, commanded Paul to be brought. And when he had come, the Jews which come down from Jerusalem.
Yeah, so Festus, right? This guy's a Roman. So here you have the Romans, the family of Herod, defending Paul, right? Against his own people. And this, you know, and not to say they were not wicked and all that. I'm not defending them, but it's just showing you that the sad circumstance that our people were in, that a man who as righteous as Christ, who was just teaching love your neighbor as yourself and loving those principles, that when Christ was going back and forth with the Pharisees and all that, the Jews, nothing that he said was able to, or nothing they said was able to stomp Christ or vice versa, in the sense that everything that he said was not against the Torah. That's why they didn't touch him. That's why they had to go into, a slick kind of way to try to kill this guy, right? Read.
Verse 7. And when he had come, the Jews which came down from Jerusalem stood round about, and laid many and grievous complaints against Paul.
Come on.
Which they could not prove. While he answered for himself, neither against the law of the Jews, neither against the temple, nor yet against Caesar.
Come on.
Have I offended anything at all?
Come on.
But Festus, willing to do the Jews a pleasure, answered Paul and said, Wilt thou go up to Jerusalem, and there be judge of these things before me? Then said Paul, I stand at Caesar's judgment seat.
Now I go to Caesar. Look at that. He ready to go to the fourth beast, the enemy, right? Right? the fourth beast, why it's called Revelation, and that old serpent, the devil, right? And he's going to Caesar, the representation of the devil, right? Because he knew that if he goes to Jerusalem, he will not get out of that. He will not come back, right? Read, because he had those men waiting to kill him. Read.
Then said Paul, I stand at Caesar's judgment seat, where I ought to be judged. To the Jews have I done no wrong, as thou very well knowest.
Come on.
For if I be an offender, or have committed anything worthy of death, I refuse not to die.
So this is the crazy thing. The Most High used the fact that the Herod family converted to Judaism to achieve some level of status within the Israelite community. And that evil deed, he used it for good. Because he said, as you know, because this guy knew the law. He was part of that family. You see that? Read.
For if I be an offender or have committed anything worthy of death, I refuse not to die.
Come on.
But if there be none
If I did something wrong, I will kill me. I refuse not to die. I will not refuse you to kill me. Show me the evidence. Read.
But if there be none of these things whereof they accuse me, no man may deliver me unto them. I appeal unto Caesar.
Why? Because he was a Roman citizen. Read.
Then Festus, when he had conferred with the council, answered, Hast thou appealed unto Caesar? Unto Caesar thou shalt go. And after certain days, King Agrippa and Bernice came on to Caesarea to salute Festus. And when they had been there many days, Festus declared Paul cause unto the king, saying,
so Festus, he was like, yeah, you know what's going on with this guy, this Judean Paul guy? Let me tell you what happened with a riot, a few days ago. I had to go do this. This is what happened, right? Read.
There's a certain man left in bonds by Felix, about whom, when I was at Jerusalem, the chief priests and the elders of the Jews informed me, desiring to have judgment against him. To whom I answered, it is not the manner of the Romans to deliver any man to die, before that he which is accused have the accusers face to face.
Come on.
And have license to answer for himself concerning the crime laid against him.
So the people that were accusing him in verse 8 and 9, they were reporting not stuff that they saw or heard. They would say, well, this is what I heard somebody else said, or things of that nature. So even within the Roman Empire, there were laws that you cannot kill somebody unless the accuser comes and say, yeah, this is what he did, this, and things of that nature. So I think I said it last week that even the wickedest nation, they got to have some level of moral compass to have a society run. It wasn't like the Romans was running around naked all day, orgies and they have some level of governmental structure, right? So let's read.
Verse 17, therefore, when they were come hither, without any delay on the morrow, I sat on the judgment seat and commanded the man to be brought forth, against whom, when the accuser stood up, they brought none accusation of such thing as I suppose, but had certain questions against him of their own superstition.
Now, should we supposed to be doing this with our church? Should I got a beef with a brother in the church. And I got, should we be going to court and, should I be using that, influence, whatever, I know the judge and all that, and come to the church, shalom, brother, here's some paper, you've been served, right? No, because the scripture says, dare any one of you go before the unjudged, before, in law, but not before the saints. So all of this, he was using these things because everybody here, we're not a Christian. You understand? He was the only Christian in this whole story, and he was just maneuvering, trying to defend himself, to keep himself alive while teaching the gospel. Right? Read.
But had certain questions against him of their own superstition, and of one Yeshua, which was dead, whom Paul affirmed to be alive.
Come on.
And because I doubt of such manner of questions, I asked him whether he would go to Jerusalem and there be judge of these matters.
Come on.
But when Paul had appealed to reserve unto the hearing of Augustus, I commanded him to be kept till I might send him to Caesar.
Come on.
Then Agrippa said unto Festus, I will also hear the man myself tomorrow, said he, that thou shalt hear him. And on the morrow, when Agrippa was come, and Bernice went with great pomp, and was entered into the place of hearing, with the chief captains and principal men of the city. And Festus commanded Paul was brought forth. And Festus said, King Agrippa and all men which are here present with us, ye see this man.
Okay,
about
so hold
whom,
that. What chapter and verse you in?
verse 24.
25, 24, or 24, 25?
No, 25, 24.
Okay, so jump down. Go to chapter 26. Jump down to 26.
Acts 26:1. Then Agrippa said unto Paul, thou art permitted to speak for thyself. Then Paul stretched forth the hand.
So
and
Agrippa was a Herod, right? So now, and he was a tetrarch. The word tetrarch means, is it like 25%?
Quarter, yeah.
A quarter,
Yeah.
right? Of the region. So King Herod, he was king of the entire region, but his children divided the region into 25% each. So a quarter each. So that's why Agrippa he was not the king Herod, he was the tetrarch, which means a quarter. Read.
Then Paul stretched forth the hand and answered for himself, I think myself happy, King Agrippa, because I shall answer for myself this day.
I'm glad you're here, King Agrippa. Here's the enemy, an Edomite. Right? Not to say you're an Edomite doesn't mean you're an automatic enemy, but what I'm saying is, historically, the Herod family was associated with trying to kill Christ, right, in the day of his birth, right? This was an evil family. And here's Paul saying, I'm glad his sons, glad we're having this conversation, King Agrippa, right? Read.
Because I shall answer for myself this day before thee, touching all the things whereof I am accused of the Jews.
Come on.
Especially because I know thee to be an expert in all customs and questions which are among the Jews.
Because he was what? A convert. Right? Read.
Wherefore I beseech thee to hear me patiently.
Come on.
My manner of life from my youth, which was at the first among my own nation at Jerusalem, know all the Jews, which knew me for the beginning, if they would testify that after the most straightest sect of our religion, I lived a Pharisee.
Come on.
And now I stand and am judged for the hope of the promise made of the Most High unto our fathers.
Come on.
Unto which promise our 12 tribes, instantly serving the Most High day and night.
Come on.
Hope to come, for which hope's sake, King Agrippa, I am accused of the Jews. Why should it be taught a thing incredible with you, that the Most High should raise the dead? I verily thought with myself that I ought to do many things contrary to the name of Yeshua of Nazareth.
Come on.
Which thing I also did in Jerusalem, and many of the saints did I shut up in prison, and have received authority from the chief priests. And when they were put to death, I gave my voice against them. I punished them off in every synagogue.
So why did Paul started this way? Okay. If I was a strict Muslim, right? Well-known, a strict point against the Bible or what have you, or I was an atheist or whatever, or an evolutionist, whatever, and I debated Christians about how old the earth is, and I was known for that. And I'm giving you my resume on what I was. And one day, I tell you, I was in my bed and I saw a vision, right? That thing or the Most High touched me or something. Okay, I know this guy was a strict opponent of the Bible. But now he's following the Bible. So what Paul is doing is giving legitimacy of the story of Road of Damascus. So people could say, okay, I wasn't there, but something happened to this guy. Because this guy was killing Christians, well, arresting Christians. So he was giving his resume, you understand? It's like similar to, you have those that grew up in the Christian churches and, you got people coming in. I used to be a gangbanger and this, that, and the other. And one day Jesus touched me, right? And the mother comes and like, he must have been touched by Jesus because he was the worst, right? So he was setting that stage to give legitimacy to the Road of Damascus story. You guys what I'm saying? Okay. Read.
Verse 10. Which thing I also did in Jerusalem, and many of the saints did, I shut up in prison and received authority from the chief priests. And when they were put to death, I gave my voice against them. And I punished them off in every synagogue and compelled them to blaspheme. And being exceedingly mad against them, I persecuted them even unto strange cities.
I went all over the place, right? Read.
Whereupon, as I went to Damascus with authority and commission from the chief priests, at midday, O king, I saw the way a light from heaven, above the brightness of the sun, shine around about me, and them which journey with me. And when we were fallen to the earth, I heard a voice speaking unto me, saying in the Hebrew tongue, Saul, Saul, why persecute thou me? It is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. And I said, Who art thou, Lord? And he said, I am Messiah whom thou persecuted. But rise and stand upon thy feet, for I have appeared unto thee for this purpose, to make thee a minister and a witness, both to thee these things which thou hast seen, of those things in which I will appear unto thee, delivering thee from the people and from the Gentiles, unto whom now I send thee, to open their eyes and to turn them from darkness to light, and from the power of Satan onto the Most High.
Come on.
That they may receive forgiveness of sins and inherit among them which are sanctified by faith.
So
that
see,
is in me.
Paul is not only telling the story and also defending himself, but guess what? He's preaching the gospel to an Edomite. Come on, read.
Verse 19. Whereupon, O King Agrippa, I was not disobedient unto the heavenly vision.
Come on.
But showed first unto them of Damascus, and at Jerusalem, and throughout all the coast of Judea, and then to the Gentiles, that they should repent and turn to the Most High, and do work meet for repentance. For these causes the Jews caught me in the temple, and went about to kill me. Having therefore obtained help of the Most High, I continue on to this day.
Come on.
Witnessing both to the small and great, saying no other thing than those which the prophets and Moses did say should come, that Christ should suffer, and that he should be first, that should rise from the dead, and should show light unto the people and to the Gentiles.
Come on.
And he is thus spake for himself. Festus said with a loud voice, Paul, thou art beside thyself. Much learning doth make thee mad.
Okay, you take it, Paul. You're going crazy, right? Read.
But he said, I am not mad, most noble Festus, but speak forth the words of truth and soberness. For the king knows of these things, before whom also I speak freely.
So who's the king he's talking about? Agrippa. Because Agrippa understood the history. He understood the waiting of the Messiah and all that. He knows these things. Right, read?
And look that even though Festus dared to kill him, he still called him a noble Festus.
Exactly. He
Like
still gave
respect.
him respect. You see that? Read.
Verse 26. For the king knoweth of these things, before whom also I speak freely. For I'm persuaded that none of these things are hidden from him. for these things was not done in a corner.
Come on.
King Agrippa, believest thou the prophets? I know that thou believest.
You see that? So it's like this. The Herod family converted for political reasons. They were not really sincerely Jews. But Paul did not use that at that time. It's like somebody who is not really a Christian or Israelite, whatever, right? A follower of Christ. But if he's been put in the spot, he got to follow, I'm going to do love my enemies, whatever. You understand? But if he's a scam artist, but he has to, even scam artists have to do something to convince the people they're not scam artists. So see, Paul was using wisdom, right? You believe the prophets, right? Yeah. I converted to Judaism, right? Because he understood that within Judaism, the prophets are highly respected. So Paul was using wisdom to put Agrippa in the spot to say, the prophets is a prophet about the Messiah coming and dying for the people and all that. Right? Read.
Then Agrippa said unto Paul, almost thou persuaded me to be a Christian.
I almost became a Christian. You dropping some science. Right? Read.
Verse 29. And Paul said, I will be to God that not only thou, but also all that hear me this day were both almost and altogether such.
Now, wait a minute. If this guy was an Edomite, why did Paul have said, you're the devil what the Bible speaks of? Mm-hmm. You're going to slavery. Mm-hmm. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right? He said, listen, I hope they all, convert. Mm-hmm. Right? He didn't say, oh, man, except Edomite and Canaanites and the Hittites. Right? Read.
And Paul said, I would to God that not only thou,
you, read,
but also all that hear me this day were both almost and altogether such as I am, except these bonds.
Except these bonds. See how Paul was operating?
Mm-hmm. Like everything but these things.
You get what I'm saying? He was using wisdom. Read.
Verse 30.
He was putting his Jacob hat at that time. He's supplanting Esau again. Mm-hmm. Right? Read.
Verse 30. And when he had thus spoken, the king rose up, and the governor and Bernice, and they that sat with them. And when they were gone aside,
these are all the Herods family and their associates. He preached the gospel to the family that their father was trying to kill the Messiah. Not once he was like, your father was trying to kill Christ. I heard about that story. He had to go to Egypt, right? That was not the time for that, right? Read.
And when they were gone aside, they talked between themselves, saying, this man doth nothing worthy of death or of bonds. Then said Agrippa unto Festus, this man might have been set at liberty if had not appealed unto Caesar.
He said he could have been, set at liberty. Thank God he went to Caesar, because he would not have been set at liberty unless Caesar, appealed in his behalf, right? That was it? Okay, let's give the Most High a hand. We're going to stop there. Oh, praise to the Most High. So use wisdom, just don't deny Christ. Okay. So does anybody have any questions in regards of how to deal with situation at work or your family or in things that you may be prosecuted and things of that nature? Should you wear fringes at work? Should you, wear blessed by the best, wear sin is the transgression of the law hoodie, right? While you are doing your customer service, So anybody has any particular questions that, or concerns about particular, how should we conduct ourselves, as Israelites? And, I see a mic over here. I mean, I see a hand over here, so give the sister a mic. All right. I see another, I think I saw a hand over in the back there. Well, I don't see the pants. She wear fringes every day at work, so that's not even a. Okay, yeah, go ahead, sister.
Shalom, family.
Shalom.
I work in a Jewish hospital.
Yeah. Why we thought we were gonna do that? Right? Go ahead. Yeah.
And
Shh.
and we have patients from Egypt,
Right.
and we have found that all Egyptians who are darker than me,
Mm-hmm.
on everything it says they're white.
Mm-hmm. So repeat that again.
On their birth certificate,
Uh-huh.
it says they're white.
So Egyptians, they are darker than you in the hospital when they ID.
Everything about them is white. So the Egyptians have found out that whoever is running Egypt, they don't want them to know that they're different colors. So every Egyptian birth certificate, no matter what they look like, on their birth certificate, it says they're white.
You know what? That's something interesting, sister, because I've been trying to prove it for many years. I believe that we're the majority in this country. I can't prove it, but I believe that there is, because even like with Hispanics and all that, they usually, when they do the censoring, if they go to a Spanish house or whatever, or they'll dub them as white. So in the censoring, we may, because that's how they be able to assess the population in America. I believe we're the majority, and they just mind controlling us, thinking that they are the majority. But go ahead, sister.
Okay, and some Egyptian, when they came to America and they're filing for citizenship, that's when they know that on their birth certificate they says they're white. Because they said they never look at their birth certificate. They only check to find out if they're Muslim or whatever. But they never check to find out until they come to America. So now they're fighting for that to change.
To change. Okay. It's all over the place, but that's profound. That's profound, sister.
Also, I work with a lot of people that are from Russia. When they found out that I'm a Hebrew Israelite, they've taken me aside to let me know that it's true. Because they said where they come from in Russia, in all their churches, on all the walls, all the people are black like me. Exactly.
The Russian icons. And that's profound what the sister's saying, because if Sister Pansy would be going to a Jewish hospital and be like, you're the devil who the Bible speaks of, not only she would not have a job, but those relationships that she's building, you understand what I'm saying? Could be benefit even from Israel. So when I deal with Jews and all that and things of that nature, I know that the prophecy, is being fulfilled. I'll provoke you to judge with a nation that's not, and things of that nature. But you have to hold that down. And then what I do is I don't challenge their being a Jew. I'm just saying, I'm an Israelite. I don't challenge their identity. You get what I'm saying? I just say, I'm an Israelite. Oh, and they'll start, well, why? Well, I'll get, and I will go into I will start with history and end with the scriptures. I will never start with the scriptures. Well, I show you this book, that made a native of the Dominican Republic. It was, there was books called, there's a book called Jewish President in the Dominican Republic. It was a Spanish book. It was translated to English. Maybe I could give you that. I could show you that. Oh, that's interesting. And then many of the Spanish names were actually people that came from Spain. A lot of them were Israelites. There were Spanish names. Yeah, I heard that. Right? You never challenge their who they are and things of that nature. Right?
Sir?
And then it becomes a thing that once you bring that out and things of that nature, and so forth, so on, you could build, you start spreading that information, because that night, that person is going to be talking to their spouse and their friend. You know what I heard? This Jamaican lady from my hospital, Pansy, She knows she's an Israelite. She's awake. You understand?
No,
Go ahead, sister.
Elder, no.
No? Okay. Correct me, sister. Go ahead.
Elder, I'm an Hebrew Israelite. My fringes are always.
Right.
So they'll come to me and ask me who I am. And I said, I've read the Bible and I found out that I am a Hebrew Israelite.
Right.
And they're want to find out from me what I know. So I said to them, I read Genesis and I found out that the Most High used dirt to make Adam.
Right.
So he couldn't look like them.
Right.
So I continue and I said, I have read and I see me in the book. Can you show me you in the book?
Right. Right. Well, Jews come from different areas of the world. Right.
And that's how I do it. Because I said I've not seen any Jewish people in the book.
Yeah. And because I had this conversation with a friend when I was my ex-boss. His friend was Jewish, Orthodox Jewish, and things of that nature. And see, a lot of them know they may not be Jews, but through bloodline. But see, within their religion, they have, if you get circumcised and keep Torah, you're a Jew. So it doesn't matter. Within the doctrine, situation. So, but if you bring it in a certain way, it's like when Elder Rawchaa was having the conversation with the Jewish guy in Manchester in the radio show, right? When the way the elder didn't compromise their belief in none whatsoever. But the way he did it, the Jew at the end was like, okay, I can understand you could be a Jew, but why can I not be a Jew? You get what I'm saying? So it's all about the approach on the situation. At the end, and things of that nature, listen, 3 years ago, more like 5 years ago, I was in front of, about to go into TD Bank. I had to go, and I got a phone call. It was, the Most High is my witness, a Jewish man calling me. Elder Gabar? Yes. My family, they're Orthodox Jews, but I believe in Yeshua, and I've been seeing you guys. I want to help, and this and that. Kid you not. Whatever it is you need, it's this and that. So we were talking, yada, 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 yada. And he was like, and I always wanted the food package of the Talmud, the one they use. So he was like, well, I want to see if I could get one for you, but it's very hard to get it because you got to get positioned by a rabbi. Like, all right, if you could do it, this and that, yada, yada, yada. We called me maybe 2 other time, and we, who knows what happened. They probably were trading the calls and things of that nature. But they are listening. You understand? But if I would have cursed them out, you're the devil, you know what I mean? Click, and things of that nature. I'm going to go what Paul says. I wish that all men will convert and follow Christ. So they're listening. You don't have to even be in a situation in a hostility, be hostile to anybody. Is the intellectual Israelites going to win the fight today? You understand? So yeah, you got to have different hats. You cannot be a Maccabees all the time. When it's time to be Maccabees, okay, let's do what we got to do. But right now, is the intellectual Israelite who is going to win that fight. Okay, anybody else?
Yes.
Yep, yes, sister.
According to Lee B. Cummins, the word that we hate so much, nigger, it's was a slave coast in Niger.
Yeah.
And they picked the slaves up from along that coast, West Africa. And so that word, bringing them to America was noted to help them to remember that these are the ones that came from those areas.
Right.
Also, in 1671, I think it was, there were 3 large ships of a Judah that landed at the mouth of the Mississippi.
Yep.
And it is registered in the Library of Congress in Mississippi,
Yep.
which is something that could be pulled up, he said.
Yeah, and I think they have the registry. That's the one that had the registry with all the slaves' name, and they all have Yah, Joshua, or Yeshua, or the names they had were Hebrew names. All the slaves.
Yes.
Yeah. So who sent me that? It was like Michael Jordan. Somebody sent me that. I got to start doing some PowerPoints again. It's been a while, but you're right. It was all associated with Hebrew. What are African doing with Hebraic names? Go ahead, brother.
Shabbat Shalom. I wanted to land back off Sister Pansy, what she was talking about.
Yeah.
About the Egyptian.
Yep.
And the black. There was a Egyptian man that, I think his name was Mustafa or something. He wanted to, when he came to America, he wanted to go to college and get funding as a black man.
Yeah.
But they kept telling him he was white. And he was like, I'm black. He had an afro.
Yeah.
And all that. And he was dark. He was like, he tried to sue the Supreme Court. And he lost, and they ruled him black. They ruled him white. And but if you look in the Black's Law Dictionary, and you look up black, it has nothing to do with color.
You're right. You're right.
It's a legal classification.
Yeah, it's a legal classification.
Because it says people born in North Africa, and Europe are deemed white.
Yeah.
So if you're dark and you're from Europe or North Africa, you're white.
You're white because it's a status. It's not a nationality.
It has nothing to do with nationality. Plus,
exactly.
Black can't be a race.
Right.
It's not a nationality.
Right.
You can't claim that.
Exactly.
It's something where they can classify a group of people and subjugate. That's what it's for.
Right. Amen. Yep, that is true. Thank you, brother, for that statement. All praises. All right. Anybody else? Anybody here for the first time? First timers? Old friends? Okay. Anybody here for the first time? First time? Okay, right. We got a first time. Raise your hand, sister. Who are you? Who's here for the first time? I'm sorry, sister. Oh, she was here for the first time, but she stepped out. Okay, all right. Well, maybe she gets back. All right. Oh, praise to the Most High. I got one person over here. Okay. Yes, sir. Who are you? Why are you here? Who invited you?
Greetings.
Greetings.
My name is Leroy Lloyd. I'm from Jamaica, West Indies. I'm just seeking the truth.
All right, the West Indies. All right, welcome, brother. Who invited you?
On the brother to my right, Eric.
Eric. Oh, okay.
Valerie.
All right.
The brother to my
brother.
right, Eric, and Sister Valerie.
Okay, welcome. I know I was upstate, Brother Eric's house. I know we're going to start eventually studying a ministry up there. Oh, praise to the Most High. So we're going to be doing a work up there as well. Oh, praises. All right, anybody else? All right, oh, praise to the Most High. So we're going to get ready for the to pray out and to praise and worship. But before we do that, and the announcements, we're going to have a collection. And we could just do a quick one. You could have the brothers offer